Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Before we go any further, please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate the podcast if you're listening on Spotify. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people.
So Pete, I think the majority of what we're going to look at today is my secondment deployment into an intensive care unit during COVID. It was more of an eye-opener and a perspective check really that, okay, this is a challenging environment for people. Training us on, right, these are the sort of things around the hospital that you might see people try and take their own lives with. And you're like, oh, right. Oh, I remember one nurse talking to me about one of her patients who was not doing so well just on the O2 therapy mask. You know, like these patients are on 100% O2 and their body's showing like we said earlier, 60%. If you don't like something, then change it. If you can't change it, reflect and see if you can change the way you think about it. Opportunities are all around us. How you find out about them and maximise them to your advantage is up to you.
Shall we kick it off?
Let's go, Pete.
Chris Sellick, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. How are you today?
Mate, I'm fantastic.
You had a good morning?
I had a fantastic morning. So we just crushed a bit of a workout, smashed a little bit of legs, talked some BS for probably a good set of an hour and a half. Absolutely. Probably should have recorded that whole thing because now we're going to try and delve into the same stuff again.
Yes.
How did you find it?
It was good. I feel jelly legs would mostly describe my feeling at the moment.
And I'm not saying you're not right, but we will say, and I know we're going to get onto it because I know you and your brother are big into your fitness, you run a gym yourselves, so you are no stranger to beasting yourself, especially even the stuff you've done before you were part of the fire service. You're not a stranger to it.
No, absolutely not. No.
Right, I really wanted to have you in because they're going to go through so much ground here today, but you have played a very unique, and again, not you alone, you've been part of a team, have played a role in the past, whatever it's been, 18 months, 2 years, effectively through the COVID pandemic. So, I mean, this is only one part of what we're going to discuss today, but it's so rare to be able to get an unedited, a real authentic, boots on the ground look at what was it like, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things we did well, the things we wanted to do better, and the things that I know you've supported working on. So just give us a snapshot in time of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today and what you've been involved with over the last few years.
So Pete, I think the majority of what we're going to look at today is my secondment deployment into an intensive care unit in our county, where we got the opportunity to work directly full-time in an operational ICU during the COVID spike and almost supplement their nurses and teams in that unit to help relieve pressure on them as a team, which overall brought down pressures on the whole NHS care side of things.
The pressure on the NHS is like, I'm wondering what is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, if you know what I mean. And I'm probably sure I've got that quite wrong. But there's so many stuff that is just compounding on the things that are stressing the NHS, and they're so under-resourced and they're screaming out for people. But with the role of a firefighter, it's always been one of those sticky wickets where people feel like it's not a job and it's not this thing, but there is a massive desire for it. I do loads of stuff with brother-in-law as paramedic. I've always wanted to do more of the trauma stuff. I want us to be going out to trauma calls. I'm happy to be open to saying that, and I know the unions need to get the thing and try and make sure everybody gets rewarded for it and blah, 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 blah. But this last sort of 24 months has been an example where we know people want to do it. When the country's been in crisis, firefighters such as yourself and many others, and also other sectors which have chipped in. I know the police have helped out, and care sectors and all that sort of stuff have pulled the bootstraps up and done it. People want to help out. They want to do it. So how did the secondment come about? Because people might not even be familiar with what a secondment actually is. So you were not actually working. You were still part of the fire service.
Correct.
Whilst you were doing this.
Absolutely.
But you were. How does it work?
So the secondment role, our service put out various comms about how they were going to support the pandemic and the opportunities that they were looking at to sort of bolster, prop up the NHS during their time of need. There was a few different roles which came available. I think around 3, 4, 5 different secondment opportunities. Some were alongside usual roles a bit later down the line, but they did vaccinations by firefighters, the hospital deployment, of course, removal of, sadly, the deceased as a sort of body recovery role.
But you know what? That's something that's actually straight in our wheelhouse. Do you know what I mean? People that might go, oh no, we don't. Yeah, we do that sort of stuff. We get called to road traffic collisions. We get called to homes to cut down suicides. We do that already. So now this, and I know I'm sorry, I'm interrupting first and foremost, but I'm getting triggered as well because when people say, "Oh, that's not part of our job," yeah, it is.
It is.
We do it all the goddamn time. You know, we've always done it. So these are things that you have a great skill set, you can do, you want to do it, you're interested in doing it, and we know there's a need for it. You know, the COVID was a perfect example where the emergency services needed to pull together, and so many services have done that in such a fantastic way.
Absolutely.
So how many people was it that did it from your particular service? Obviously, you operate in the UK Fire and Rescue Service.
Yes, yeah. So speaking for my own service only, I believe there was about 27 of us. It began by almost like a pathfinding recce by some of our USAR technicians who went into one particular hospital and sort of almost did a bit of a field test as such as to how they would insert themselves into this unit and how they could help. Then they... Was
that a request from your service that they go and do that? And was there a need for them to be, because you're a USAR technician as well, did they need to be USAR to do it, or was it just because of the type of people they were?
I believe it was the latter, and perhaps the type of people.
Did they have to seek permission to do it, and was anybody kicking up any stink about it?
Well, we could end up.
We're not going to name names, but you know, I regularly say, "Oh, let's go and do this," and people are like, "I'm a union rep. We're not doing that," and I'm like, "I'm not fucking asking your permission. I'm just going to go and do this because I think it's the right thing to do. I'm not trying to undermine anybody. I'm not trying," and I end up doing it outside of my role in my service because I feel like it's the right thing to do, and I'm like, fine, I'm just going to do it over there.
Yeah, you've hit the nail you've hit the nail on the head there, Pete. As I'm sure you're aware, and as you've touched on some of the other episodes, there was a lot of politics involved at the time, and perhaps some holdbacks on the nature of the firefighter and wanting to help and, you know, doing things to help our nation and help our communities, counties, however you may see it. And yeah, there was some kickback. I wasn't privy to it.
And don't get me wrong, you know, I am 100% on board with the different unions. Firefighters need to get paid more, 100%. We should be rewarded for the skill sets that we do. If we are taking on more responsibilities, we need to do it. The FBU are coming on the podcast, but I'm not going to pretend to know, and they'll educate me very passionately perhaps when they come on, because I want to be educated about it, but I feel like every time we try and push a change like this through, it's like we're walking through treacle. And when we know that fires I know we do a lot more than just fires, but that is one example, is constantly shrinking after the success of everything that we do in community safety and stuff like that. There is a plethora of things on this buffet of community needs that need us. Yeah, we've got a great moral position. We're a great, you know, USP in the communities. So which problem do you want to pick up? Because you're going to get given something. And I'm like, well, I would rather we continue to serve people and go to emergencies. And so for that, me screams trauma. It screams NHS. It screams let's work with the paramedics like the Americans do, like the Canadians do, like they do a lot of places around the world. I want us to get there. It just seems like you say, when people try and hold out the branch or they try and step over and do a little bit, it gets, you know, salt thrown at it. But you guys have seemed to have successfully managed it.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is and probably always will be some resistance. Comes back to the change topic, doesn't it? It is change. Some people don't like change. Some people embrace change, and I think a lot of it's maybe
firefighters tend to hate the way things are and they hate change.
That's
so they're still going to struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
They're living in the hedonic treadmill, the self-perpetuating torture. Bless them. Some of them do.
We'll moan and moan, won't we? But we'll change it. Oh no, we won't do that.
No, I don't like change. Who's approved that? Who's sign it off? But some people do want change and they do want to embrace it, and some just want to make sure it's done properly. And I appreciate that. And again, we should be rewarded for it. Some people don't want to do it no matter how much they're going to get paid.
Yes.
And they're the ones.
Yeah.
They're throwing up objections that are actually just, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And they put it under the guise of, oh, well, I don't think it's being done right. Or I don't know if we're being rewarded enough for it. But even if you ticked all them boxes for them, some people just ain't going to want to do it.
No, yeah.
And it sounds harsh, but I just want to get them out of the services. Anyway, sorry.
Where were we?
So what was the first steps into it for you? You were to apply for this secondment. Was there like a interview process, or was it you just had the right skill sets and off we go?
So the process was internal comms. Here's what we're doing as a service. Express your interest through this form. Tick the boxes of which sort of work you might be interested in, such as a little bit of what we touched on earlier, vaccinations, driving ambulances, ICU, full secondment, and recovery of the deceased, along with a few other things that might not have reached the public eye as such. So I ticked 3 of the 4 boxes of what I was willing to go into. And before I knew it, they said, okay, we've got a hospital deployment for you, 4 weeks. It was in, when were we? February, March time, I think. Are you up for it? It's down in one of the cities, which was a significant journey from my house. It's probably at the time, I think it was quadrupling what my usual commute would be to my place of work. So what
we're looking at, 2 or 3 hours driving?
Not as far. I think it's probably an hour. Okay. And then they said, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm all in. Just send me wherever. I talked to my other half and said I might source some local digs if I've got a back-to-back shift and stay down there somewhere, or I might just commute, depends how I feel. And I kind of was just like, I'm just going all in for this because the country needs it, and we need to help. Or, well, I say I had a great need to help in this situation.
Today's episode was brought to you by the folks over at Wood Watches. Now, in their continued support of the Firefighters charity, they are bringing you the Always Ready motorcycle. This is done in conjunction with Soul Time Motorcycles, and there is only 300 tickets available for you to be part of this. Now, Wood Watches, as you already know, are the creators of those beautiful handcrafted timepieces made with authentic, upcycled firefighting equipment. Wood Watches have partnered with Soul Time Motorcycles that are based in Scotland to create the world's first William Wood motorcycle. This is actually incorporating many of the workings of their watches and is adorned with multiple pieces of upcycled firefighting materials, from the seat to the handlebars to stuff on the fuel tank. It looks absolutely incredible. And you can be in with a chance to win this, but there's only 300 tickets. So if you go in the notes of this podcast below, you will see how you can register for it. Now, don't worry if you're thinking that you'd love to enter, but you don't know how to ride the bike. Soul Time Motorcycles have got the answer for that. The winning ticket holder can claim free riding lessons and practical instruction on it. Now, whether you're into motorcycles or not, please head over to williamwatches.com, where you will see the most beautiful firefighting inspired watches, from the Triumph to the Valiant to the Bronze to the Chivalrous, and the Amethyst Anniversary watch, which came out earlier this year. William Watches is a long-standing partner of the podcast, so please go on, head over and check them out. Now back to the show.
Now, you're saying things like digs, you're saying things like what our country needs, as I'm sure people won't be surprised. I just want to double click on a little bit of the background here, because you have done some Army Reserve service before. Before you came into the fire service, you did a myriad of other things. Just give us the whistle-stop tour of your journey into the fire service itself as well.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so let's zoom in on that, as you would say, or double click perhaps. Started off early life at boarding school, military boarding school. Stayed there during the week, came home Saturday lunchtime, went back Sunday night.
Were you folks in the military then?
No, I've got family in the military. My parents weren't, but yeah.
Why did they opt to put you in a military boarding school? Were you just a really shit kid or what?
Yeah, I think basically that was it. Yeah. Get me out of the way.
Lack of authority or whatever. So is that a Monday to Friday thing? I never went to boarding school. Is it you don't come home during the week?
Well, you've got day boarders, which is 8 till 8, and then weekly boarder. Name is on the names on the tin. Really, Sunday night you'd go to school at about 6 p.m. and then set you up for Monday morning fitness during the week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. That sort of life. So
you were doing that? Were you the living?
Yeah, I was well into the fitness side of things, and living in your boarding house sort of thing. Breakfast.
How old were you then?
What were we at secondary school?
12,
Must
13?
have been 11, 12 up to 16. So yeah, five years of that. Absolutely loved it.
5 years. Yeah, and you're away from your family.
Yeah.
All week. You just similar weekend. Do you contact with your mum and dad in the evenings?
Oh yeah.
If you could be bothered, you probably didn't need to. You probably didn't want to every day. I wouldn't want to.
Well, my dad actually passed away when I was very young, so he sadly isn't with us anymore. But mum, see her on the weekends and that, and it wasn't actually too far away. I think the going to the boarding school actually probably shaped the rest of my life and perhaps kept me on a reasonable course of progression to where we are now. But yeah, it was a great life. So you
did that from 11 to 16?
Yeah. Loads of sport.
You've got a younger brother as well, haven't you?
I do, yeah.
Does he board in school?
He did, yeah. He did a bit of boarding for a bit, and then he actually became a day pupil.
Okay.
But yeah, it was good.
It's just been surreal. But I can appreciate that. Now you tell me a little bit more there, like if your mum was at home by herself, was she still trying to work and stuff? Or,
yeah.
So there you go. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
You'd have been not raising yourself, but it'd have been very hard for her either way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, on top of losing your dad and all that crazy.
Precisely. Yeah. So it was tough beginnings, but boarding school kept me in check.
A lot of successful people come out of boarding schools though. What is it? What do you? Obviously, you learn normal subjects there, but it must be a very different development path because you're immersed in it.
Yes,
you live
completely,
with your students all the time. And
Yep.
I mean, shit, if you're getting bullied, then it's terrible because you're never escaping it.
No.
But if you are having a great time, it must be, I don't know, I feel like I would enjoy it then. I
think
know.
you would. Yeah.
I think there's you get a lot of great athletes and stuff come out of it because it's so accessible
Myself
to
included.
sports. There you go. But like, they play on the sports teams every day. They live on the grounds. They're usually pretty beautiful grounds. So yeah, you get a lot of great athletes and stuff come out of boarding schools.
Yeah, we had sports Monday to Thursday between, I think, maybe 4 and 5:30, and then you'd have your Friday evening was drills, parade drills, because it's military school. You'd have combined cadet forces and stuff like that. There was a gym on site, swimming pool, rugby fields, massive grounds, sports Saturday morning. Then
I remember when I used to go, a friend of mine and one of my old girlfriends as well, she was at a boarding school in Wales, and it was exactly the same every Saturday, sports day.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't play sport, like everyone would go.
You would, yeah.
Because then it'd be, parties and chill outs and laughing and pizzas and everything afterwards. And it was just such a, and again, I love the fact that we do sports every single day, an hour and a half for sports. I think you get so much from that. And I don't want to get into curriculums. My sister's a primary school teacher, but how much we miss on those life lessons that sport teaches you. Being getting pushed to the ground, getting taught of leadership, getting taught of building rapport with your teammates, and how the momentum of a team sport can change, and how you've all got to get behind it, and how you've got to dig in, and how you've got to prep yourself, and drilling every Friday night. That must have given you so many subconscious, likely at that age, life skills that now it's almost like you're not starting from the same position. Like my daughter goes out and cleans the horses out every morning with my wife. In fact, you probably heard her leaving this morning. And that for me is like, when we bought a horse, it was like, people are like, I'm buying a fucking horse. That's a stupid idea. I'm like, it's an investment in lots of things. It's not an investment in a horse, that's for sure. It's going to cost money, and you're going to sell it, it's going to be worth less. But my daughter goes up there every morning. She picks up the horse poo. She clears out the thing. She's standing next to this powerful animal that keeps her in her place and makes you human. And also, you can't be too timid around a horse because it will mess you up quickly. It will know, and it will stand on you, kick you, push you out of the way, or whatever. But just the fact of getting up every morning, 5:30, getting out there for 6, is going to stand her, in my humble opinion, and I'm not a parenting expert by any stretch or any variation of the word, but when she's, with her friends 16, 17 years of age, and they're like, oh man, we've got to be there for 7 a.m, she'd be like, yeah, and, I get up at 5 every day. There's no skin off her nose. Her work ethic is going to be different. If you said some of her friends, like, go and pick up all that horse poo, they'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Oh God, guys, on my fingers. I'm like, it's the horse shit. Yeah. Pick it up. Get it done. Get the job done. Yeah. Get it done. Go and get them barrels of water. Go and pull that hay bale down. That sort of stuff. Your childhood echoes of that for me in a far more purified sense than what I'm able to do with my children, or what I choose to do with my children. But that must have built you so many disciplines.
Oh, loads. Yeah. I mean, I think the military side of the school definitely helped. We had an ex-para who was sort of our CCF lead. He'd run all the fizz for us in the mornings, along with, like the shooting range exercises and things like that. So
shooting range exercises. So was it designed that everybody would go into the military after they'd finished that thing? Is that what the thought process was?
Not precisely, but I think maybe a lot of people did. Because it was a boarding school, there was a lot of military kids there and stuff like that, whose parents were off around the world doing various bits and bobs and things.
RAF brats and all that sort
of
jazz.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I was a brat, but without the
without the priest. I was a brat.
The
piece, you got a pedigree for it.
I think that's where my interests in sort of perhaps the armed forces, public sector service, just serving. That's probably where the seed was sown as such, and the discipline for fitness and looking after your kit.
Everybody should do a bit of service. Do you know what I mean? I think we should have that subscription where it's
it back.
You've got to do 2 years. I mean, I forget what countries it is, but the Klitschko brothers, I think it's theirs, where you have to do 2 years of service.
I think
before you're 18, because I know like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, was in one of his books. You had to do 2 years of service. And then you go off and do whatever you want with life, or you carry on and stay in the military. But you had to do 2 years of service, whether that be NHS, police, fire service, and then bang, and then you go off to it. Because I think it gives people such a great conditioning as well. Even if you hate all the 2 years of it, it will make you appreciate the job you go on and do, rather than having that entitlement thought of I could do whatever I want. Life owes me something. Life doesn't owe you shit.
No, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you did choose to go on and do something in the military. Then what happened after you left school?
We'll get to that story then, shall we? So, let's go in chronological order. So after school, I just went to a regular sixth form college. Some of my pals from boarding school stayed on for sixth form college at the school because it was an option. But I just went to normal college. Hated it, to be honest.
Why?
I did. It allowed you the flexibility to sort of just get on with your own work, and I wasn't quite ready for that. I needed some sort of leadership and like here's your
it's
times.
8 a.m. crack on. It's 9 a.m. now do this.
Precisely. Yeah. So it was a bit alien to me to come out from that structure of the boarding school. You know, you've got prep time between 6:30 and 8, and then you've got some downtime, and here's your bedtime. Then lights off at what time? And then at 16, 17 years old, you go into college, learning to drive, and it's like, oh yeah, you've got to turn up for this lesson here. You've got 3 hours in between. Oh, then you got another lesson, and so I didn't do very well there.
Freedom is a strange thing, man. Freedom is dangerous. People, they subconsciously like rules.
Yes.
For example, do you want to play a game?
Go on then.
You go first.
With what?
Exactly. That's the game. Because, and there's not a game, but you say to somebody, let's play a game, and they're like, but what's the rules to the game? How do I know what winning is? How do I know what the metric is? How do I know how do I win? Do you know what I mean? So even if you think I want to play, you still want rules. You want some boundaries. You want to know, where's the edge? Where am I going to fall off? What do I need to be inside?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So even without knowing it, we're all conditioned to the fact we like rules because it allows us to have a metric for success.
Yes.
It allows me to get validation from you because I want to know what you want to be validated for, and I want to know what validation looks like so I can get validation from you because we're pack animals. I want to be accepted by you. And so people that go, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what Chris thinks. Okay, but you live with him. So you're going to want to get a response from Chris because that's why we're pack animals. We haven't got big hair, big scary teeth, big claws. We're feeble creatures, really. We would die off if we didn't live in packs and communities.
Agree.
That's the only reason we are here. So we have to want that. But when you went to school on the next phase of it, you were just flooded with freedoms that you found you didn't operate in the structure as well, perhaps.
Yeah, not at all, Pete. No, you're absolutely right. And I was kind of thinking, right, where's life going to go for me now? Like, if I can't manage this, I'm not going to be able to manage uni straight out of here. Yeah. And was
your brother still at boarding school when you were doing that then?
Yeah, so he would have been in his sort of final year. There's 3 years between Carl and I.
Yeah.
So yeah, in my last year, we didn't cross over at college essentially.
Oh, okay.
So because of that age gap, and then my mum
actually.
So
was that said, you living back home then by yourself? With obviously your mum was there.
Back with mum. Yeah.
But that was weird.
It was a bit peculiar at
Emotional.
first. Yeah. But yeah, so the college thing got through it. Got my A levels. Did fairly average at maybe I think I got. Couple of B's and some C's, or it was a very average finish in terms of on paper.
Yeah.
But I survived it, and then my mum actually said, "Well, have you thought about public services college?" And I was like, "No, not really." I knew I didn't want to go off straight away to uni, so found a public services course, a higher national diploma, because I've done the A levels already. I was able to then enter the higher national diploma, so essentially a foundation degree in public services management up at a college in Surrey. And that was back to structure, back to routine, discipline, fitness.
You know what the metrics are, you know how to play the game.
Precisely. And then here I am again in my element. We had some great lecturers, made some superb friends. One of my best friends who's still a best mate of mine now, Ivan, we met there.
I thought I was best. No, okay, I thought I was best friend. That's okay.
Maybe tomorrow.
That's okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I won't talk about it.
It's a bit awkward. You could cut that bit.
I will add
yeah. So
yeah,
yes.
I'm actually a real freak in that respect. I keep in contact with barely anybody from school because I'm always, we spoke about it earlier. I'm always like chapters of life. Do you know what I mean? So I have a great experience with somebody, and if I don't see him for 8 months, I could still meet up with them.
Yes.
Go for a stay over and go and climbing a hill in the lakes or something like that. But I don't have that. I think my sister has it where it's like she's got friends from school, she's got friends from uni, she's got friends who are mums of her kids, and she's like, you've got to stay in contact with everybody. I go, oh yeah, I've got to see this service, and I'm like, don't fucking try and be friends with everybody all the goddamn time. It's like people say, I've got 10,000 Facebook friends. You got fucking no one. That's no one. Do you know what I mean? Who can you ring at 2 a.m. who is a friend of yours? There's probably only 2 or 3. I've got one.
2 or 3 for me.
Yeah, and one of them I've probably not spoke to in a year, but I know the dude is solid.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And I would call him in a heartbeat. Another one is a friend of mine. She's a firefighter in LFB. I could ring her off the bat. She would mobilize and be here, and she's rock solid. But you still got them friendships from long ago. That's great.
College,
you can sustain that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And he's actually a firefighter in another service now. And it's funny how we ended up. But we had like ex-Met Police dog handler as one of our lecturers.
Nice.
So he was sound, very disciplined, just had this aura of respect.
Got to get someone like that on a guest. They'd be amazing, wouldn't they?
Maybe link you up with him.
Yeah,
he had some stories. And then so we did the 2 years there, various little expeditions. We went, into Europe on tours, and we went to study football hooliganism and stuff like that. And, you're tapping into various public sectors now on this course. You're getting the fire service in to do demos, police. Lots of people went off from there to do the Marines. We had an ex-war Marine lecturer. It was sound. It was my environment, and I was in my element in that.
Was everybody into it?
Most people were invested in that, and they were keen, and you could see, okay, they like this. They like this structure, discipline, and doing different things. It's active. To sit me behind a desk for 5 days a week and study mathematical algorithms, I'm done by about 20 minutes, probably 2 minutes. But and then a few of us decided to then venture up and top up our foundation degree into a full degree by going down to uni for a year together. And there was 6 of us from our course that all went down to a uni together. We all lived in a house together. We did a year at uni and got our sort of bachelor's degree. And
bachelor's in public services?
Yeah, so it's actually, you're testing me now, Pete, Bachelor of Sciences, and it's public services. So yeah, we qualified for that.
That's wicked.
It was great.
Sometimes I feel a drive to go back and do something like that. But then I have to ask myself, not saying that you did it for ego, but at this point in my life, would it just be for ego so I could put some freaking
letters next to you?
And it's still great, and I admire people that have done it, but I'm also like, what would it add to my life now? Probably not a great deal.
That's the way up.
And the people that it would matter to, I feel like, I don't know, but do you feel like those things are essential for, if you want to be a freaking, whatever, chief fire officer, or you want to be something like that? Do you think people need that sort of stuff? I don't know.
No, I don't. I think
it's a really amazing start. I wish I had have done it.
Yes.
As versus the blooming scrap craft box of education that was probably mine was thrown together. It's like it's like the kitchen drawer you pull out and you're like, there's a pair of keys in here, there's a stapler, there's a ticket,
a man drawer.
Yeah, that's my education.
But that brings well-roundedness as well.
It does. It does.
You're pulling from different pies there, and
yeah. And I also say to people, education for me, most people think education finishes when they're like 19 or 21, and they're like, I've got these 5 cards, I've got a hand of cards. This is what I've got these qualifications, I've got these skills, and I'm going to go off into the world and see what I can get with this. I'm going to hold it up to the world and go, what will you give me for my cards? And I'm like, dude, it's not over. Keep the stuff I've learned and the people I connect with through the podcast is just an absolute privilege. It's just an ongoing professional development, and that for me, but you've got to be humble to want to keep learning. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be willing to go, Chris, talk to me about it. So I don't know anything about it, and then have the humility to learn it.
Yeah, just something you touched on there, Pete. You said about the continual development, and it is just that. You don't need to go to uni to get into the fire service, the police. Well, you need a degree for the police currently, don't you?
Yeah, and for the
and for a paramedic, yeah. But you can be sponsored. You can do it on job if you're internal in the ambulance service. There are various options, but for those who are looking to join these sectors, I know some military, you need to have a degree. Perhaps if you're going in at officer level, things like that. But it is not an essential. Like if uni isn't for you.
No, but equally, I think like if you can't join the emergency services, can't join a paramedic fire service till you're 18, then I would do something like that with my time until I was 18.
Yes,
I think it's blind luck to an extent that I do what I do now, and there's so many other directions this path could have gone with, and we sort of spoke about some of them this morning. I'm sure we'll expand on them later. There's a million paths it could have gone. So I think, public services and apprenticeships and those sorts of degrees and studies are a great way for people to be looking into if they are still stuck in an education system till they're 18.
Yes.
Do that with it.
But start networking now. You know, these youngsters, they can see
there's
social
so many
media,
of them, dropping messages into the podcast. Stuff like that. We spoke about, doing some work of a way to better serve them, to give them the tools from education to fitness Because that's the way that people want to hear it. They want to hear it from the real people on the front line, not somebody that did it 40 years ago.
Yeah,
and not really got a put finger on the pulse of what's happening now in the emergency services.
Completely, yeah.
Make it relevant. So you went off and did your bachelor's.
Yeah, so did that. We all qualified, happy days. Did a little bit of travelling. Went to Australia, got family over there, so I spent some time there on my own. You know, travelled up the East Coast like you do and stuff for a few months, and then
Never done that. I want to do it.
It's good. I'd recommend it.
Mate, we've got family in New Zealand, and we've got a few firefighters from Australia that have been on the podcast, and they're like, "Dude, come over, stay for a week." And I've said this morning. I'm like, "Dude, time. I've got to make time for it. You know, kids and blah 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 blah." But you went there and did it. What was Australia like?
Amazing. Yeah, I've obviously been over the years. That was where my dad was
You've been
from.
back again.
Have I been back since a couple of times? Yeah, I've been back over a couple of times, seeing family and bits and bobs. We were meant to go just before COVID hit, and we had a camper van booked to do 6 weeks and travelling up the East Coast again, me and the
How
other
expensive is it?
half. At the time, what do you mean to book a camper?
Just a flight to Australia. I bet it's
About $1,000, I think. It was back 2 or 3 years ago.
Dude, we need to arrange a trip where we'll both go to Australia, stay with the family, visit a few Australian fire stations,
Sign me up.
do some with the watch podcasts with them, have just a blast, do some demo stuff with them, see a few sites, whatever.
Sounds awful.
5 days. That's the sort of stuff I would just love. We'll compete in some sort of fitness challenge with them while we're over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. I'm jealous, man.
So yeah, no, it's good. Jealousy drives you towards what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Or what you think you want sometimes, but then in this case, definitely what I want.
So yeah, I did the travel, and then I ended up in the same place again. Of right, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But when I got back, I got the degree, got the magic ticket as such. Get any job you want, and blah blah blah.
Piss some money up the wall traveling.
Yeah. As well as the degree. So I came back when I ran out of, my mum actually bailed me out when I ran out of money.
After she'd already sent you to private school. Jesus, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, yeah.
Mama Sellick, the love goes out to you.
Bless her.
Honestly.
Yeah. Then got stuck, and I'd been working on and off part-time since I was 14, started cutting lawns back then, then got a job in a supermarket when I was 16, while still cutting lawns on the side, trying to save up cash for what I didn't know. So worked in the supermarket, and then I was thinking, right, it's not really what I want to do. They're pushing me for like team leader roles and progression. And
do I want to do 30 years at Sainsbury's?
It was actually Waitrose.
Of course it was. Upper class. Marks and Spencer's, thank you.
It, yeah. But yeah, Pete, so I just ended up getting stuck again. And one of my colleagues there, and I still praise him to this day, he said, "Oh, what about the retained fire service in where you live then, in the village where you're living?" I'm like, sorry, what do you mean there's a fire station there? I've lived in this village for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a retained station there, mate. Obviously, you know that. No.
You've done a public services degree, of course you know that.
Precisely. Embarrassing or what? He was like, "Yeah, get yourself down there." And he did it in the town where we were working, and the employer released him to go out on calls and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then we got chatting, and then he said about the one in my village. I was like, "Really?" So went down there and spoke to the boss down there, and what's the deal here then? Blah blah blah. You know how it goes. No vacancies at the moment. Oh, well, that's a non-starter then. Yeah. I'll keep your details and I'll get back to you. Yeah, of course you will. Yeah. Sat on that again for a bit, and just waited, and then out of the blue, and I must have been 21, 22 at this point, get a phone call. "Oh, Chris, it's from the fire station.
Yeah.
And are you still interested in joining? What's your current situation? What sort of cover can you give?" "Oh, right, yeah, definitely. And when can you come down for a chat?" So, went down, had a chat, and
did you do the whole coming down, watch a drill night thing?
Yeah.
Was it pumping and ladders?
No, we don't do that, do we?
Yeah.
Pumping? Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
What should we do? Have a triple X TBA to the first floor, pumping out open water.
That's it. Yeah, that sounds
Cruise detail,
familiar.
get to work.
Yeah.
That's the UK fire rescue services drill. 13.5 there, 9 metres there, pump from open water.
Sounds like it's been done before.
Improvised dam.
Yeah.
So you went
classic.
down.
Yeah, so went down.
Filling out the details. What hours did you give?
So at first, at that retained station, I was on full-time hours at the supermarket. So I was nights and weekends at that point.
Exactly the cover they don't need.
Yes,
Usually.
now they don't need any of that.
They're
do
like,
they?
everyone's on nights.
Yeah, if you've got a local
daytime
station,
cover,
we need the daytime
cover.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'd been working on the doors to sort of help ease the student loan back at uni down there. So I wasn't
Because you're a double hard bastard as well.
Yeah, well hard. Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that.
Didn't you do that before as well, Pete?
I did, but that was mostly steroids. So it's different. I just thought I was hard. Wasn't actually hard.
Yeah, probably the same for me. Stroke the ego a bit and stuff. So no, yeah, had
Just look really tough and stick your chest out.
That's it. Yeah,
Man, standing on a door for 6 hours in the cold, it sucks.
It's mind-numbing, isn't it?
I hated it. And like I said to you before, I haven't drank since I was 17. I don't drink.
Mm.
So a lot of people used to see it as like I'm getting paid to socialise, because they're like, oh, my mates are out and I'm out and it's an absolute scream and I'm in charge. And I'm like, I hate it. I hate it. I'm getting in fights every night.
Yeah.
I don't drink. I don't enjoy it. I just hated it. But I was good at it, so I kept doing it. But anyway, you did the doorman thing as well. I think loads of people did it.
Yeah, it's a bit part-time, isn't it? And I think, again, just
the pay was all right back then as well. Now it's like less than minimum wage.
£10 an hour or 11 quid an hour, and you're dreaming, but then it stayed there, didn't it?
Yeah, it has not moved at all.
Yeah.
Now it's £10 an hour, and everybody can get an SIA license. So
Exactly.
you just got terrible people on the doors that don't care. Not that I go out drinking. They might be great. I apologise.
I mean, I was no thug, and I made some great relationships. And again, it was about part of being part of a team. You know, we had a close-knit team on our door.
You're all on the radio together.
Exactly.
And you're like, who's covering the south door and who's on this and who's on
You
that.
got it,
Something kicking off on the floor. Let's get everybody down.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Get that
You're a
adrenaline
team.
dump. Someone kicks off, and you're there with your pals. You're at work, and you're having a good time.
And then you
you're
feel
part of
like you're the
something.
police as well, because you're handing over to them outside, and you're like, yeah, this is the CCTV, this is my badge number, and they're like, yeah, great work, boys, blah 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 blah.
That's
it.
it.
Made you feel like you were part of the team.
Jessit.
Keeping everybody safe. Jessit, brother. We're having a Jessit meeting, right? This is an interagency liaison happening right here, folks, okay?
Right. So did that, and then dropped that for a bit whilst I did my retained training. Got into the team and began the development program at my local station. Continued working at Waitrose. I did say Waitrose already, didn't I? Yeah. And then my old door team, where I'd started up back again, they said, what are the chances of you coming back to us? We miss you, we want you on the team, etc. Obviously, where I'm so awesome and stuff, they really need
rock hard, didn't you?
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, double hard, team
You
player.
scare everybody away. We need you back.
Yeah, I think it's with my height. Oh no, it's not that. Anyway, so then I asked my gaffer at the time, what your thoughts on me going back to this work on the weekends, Friday night, Saturday night. Doesn't really affect the cover because you got loads of Friday night. He was supportive, so I went back to that, and then before I know it, I'm juggling 3 jobs again with no sort of full-time fulfillment. So I'm doing the part-time fire station, really starting to embrace that, loving it, and thinking, actually, I wonder if I could do this full-time. I'm really enjoying this. I'm with an awesome team.
Were you with your partner at the time, with your current partner at the time?
Yeah. I'd started before we got together, but not long before. So
How did you meet her?
we met at the supermarket.
Crush did, the frozen food section.
It's Fresh Foods.
Fresh foods.
Yeah,
of
close.
course. Waitrose.
Yeah.
Did you apply some sort of euphemism to do with fruit and vegetables, or how did it go?
Never. No, that would be highly inappropriate and unprofessional.
How soon into getting to know her did you tell her you were a firefighter?
Oh, it's before you got to just drop.
I'm at Waitrose with a high-vis jacket saying retained on-call firefighter.
That's it.
Oh, sorry, were you looking at my... Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a hero, actually. So I probably didn't mention it, but
No.
actually I just wanted to know where the bread was. Yeah, well, I'm an on-call firefighter, so I can tell you that. Yeah.
That's it. And I wore my pager on my bottom lip as well,
Yes.
so I didn't want to miss a call or anything. Yeah. So, some confused customers. Bless them. But
So she was on board. She was supportive of it.
She supported me from the humble
Because people
beginnings
forget how much of on-call
to this day.
like swallows up out of your personal life.
Massive
Trying
commitment.
I think it gets easier when you have a long-term partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably still harder on them, but it's certainly hard when I know people are trying to date and stuff. They think it's
Yes.
a benefit, but also like you're never available. So
Yeah. Well, you can't have the best of both worlds. You can't date an absolute hero, can you? And
No, that's
then
it.
not go and do their hero work.
territory.
Yeah.
Hey folks, just a reminder that we actually do giveaways to our listeners pretty much every single month. So a quick reminder of some of the things you can get your hands on for free as a listener of the Firefighters podcast. With our partnership hikes, you can get a pair of their Connexus Go GTX or their Nature GTX. We give away a pair of these every single month on the podcast to one of the listeners. You need to head over to one of our social media platforms and check out the competition giveaway. Also, with our partnership in Tallyman, you can get 2 personalized BA tallies with your name inscribed and the podcast on the back. Also really excited to tell you about our new partnership with Rosenbauer, who will be giving away a pair of their Boros B4 firefighting boots once every quarter with the podcast for the rest of 2022. This is honestly one of my favorite parts of the podcast, when we're literally giving away stuff for free from people who recognize what we're trying to do and the authenticity that we bring to the market. So head over to our social media platforms and check out some of those giveaways. A big thanks once again to Hikes, Tallyman and Rosenbauer for choosing to be part of the podcast. Now back to the show.
So how soon after thinking about the whole time did you take the jump?
Well, so this is probably took 2 to 3 years, or I think I was quite sold on the job. I still had this little seed in my head about the military because of the public services college and some courses me and my mates had gone on, and there was definitely a bug for that as well.
Were you weekend warriors? Were you doing the penny fan on the weekends and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we had.
Hey mate, I've got some camo and some old rucksacks from my mate in the SAS, and we're going to go to the Lake District and put some rocks in our rucksack and let's
run
do
up
it.
a hill.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So that seed was still there, but I kind of parked that and thought, right, I've got an opportunity here to try and get into the fire service and just see where it goes. I wasn't overly committed to doing the 60-year career or whatever it is these days, but
They'd love to hear that at interview. I'm not really very committed, but I'm here. It's the best thing to say.
I was up for a good stint of it and just see where the path took me as such.
Mate, that's what I always say to people, don't say no. You don't really know what you're saying no to. Yes doesn't mean yes forever. It means yes for now.
Precisely.
And if in 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, I'm like, oh, there's another opportunity. I'm going to go do that.
Going for it.
It's absolutely fine.
Precisely.
People say no to stuff and they don't really understand why they're saying no or what they're saying no to. They're just scared. But I say go for it.
Yeah. So I started the usual process. I'm sure many people are familiar. Applying everywhere and anywhere. Private sector, airports, counties all over the country, before they started bringing in the postcode restrictions and all that.
Yeah, I think they're kicking a lot of that out now, though.
It's going the other way again, isn't it? I've noticed.
Should do. I get it, representing your community and living in your community, and we represent the needs of our community because people know it and they live there and blah, 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 blah. But if you want the best people for the job, you want to cast the net as wide as possible, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's good. It's gone the other way again now. And they don't have the volume to just select county only or area code only.
Absolutely.
But for the amount of vacancies, as we've talked about this morning, that are up and coming.
It's such an exciting period of time now. We're having such a massive turnover in staff in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. I'm stoked about it.
We're going to see a lot of fresh change and a lot of
it's down to those people, whether you've been in here for 3 years, 10 years, 30 years, 1 year, you are part of the emergency services now. So you are setting the standard. You have got to be the old hand on the watch, even if you've only been there for 3 years or whatever. They're going to look to you because so many new people are coming in and you're going to set the pulse. You're going to set the culture.
Precisely.
You are the culture.
We are, yeah.
So if it was crap 10 years ago, fine. But if it's crap now, it's your fault.
You've
got a responsibility for it.
Yes, exactly that.
100%.
So spent however many applications at the laptop, however many setbacks and hurdles and knockbacks, and just kept on plodding away at it.
Thank you for your interest, but on this occasion, you have not made it through to the next stage.
And we don't have the capacity to give you feedback. Okay.
We're not currently holding a waiting list, but we encourage you to apply. We will advertise on blah, blah, blah.
You got it. Yeah. So, I had good support from my colleagues on my retain station. My watch manager in particular helped me with loads of applications. It was a good mentor for me back then. But the frustrations and that began to take its toll. But finally, I passed the selection for London, LFB, after about 2.5 years, 3 years maybe of applying.
Yeah.
And the odds on that were pretty high, and I surprised myself. But
biggest service, best funded service in the UK. Not necessarily the best service, but the best funded and the biggest by sure.
Yeah, and they had they told me 13,500 applicants for 100 positions, and I was like, oh God, I was really pleased with myself.
Are colossal as well.
Yeah,
I mean they've got 6,000 employees.
Yeah,
it's
big, isn't it?
Huge, and I say they're
big
losing
service.
10% of their service this year alone. 600 they're recruiting. Wow, massive.
So it's that was really good. I was so chuffed, and they took on their first batch of 50 recruits, and then I was tentatively waiting to start on the second batch of 50. And then a certain politician decided to close some fire stations. Don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember it.
And then I got a nice letter saying, apologies, we won't be taking on your batch of recruits.
Mate.
And this was, you know,
How much of a kick in the balls?
massive. I was like, okay, I've scored a golden ticket here, getting into the city fire service. Don't live that far away, or, you know. And I was excited to then be, you know, dropped from whatever story window onto the floor, it felt, and I was really demoralised. And that knockback I found really hard to get over, because I was so close, Pete, you know.
Yeah. And you told everybody as well, probably, you know, and you start to get that.
Yeah.
You know what, man, fuck this. You know what I mean? I just can't. It's just like, maybe it's just not meant to be. Maybe it's not my thing.
That was it. I was like, you know what, perhaps life's showing me another journey or another path or something. Yeah. So I was like, right, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's try the military now. I've always got the bug for it. I've got family in doing some cool things and stuff. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. So I went to the recruitment office and filled out another application for that role and started ticking through the different stages of that process. And I said I'd give myself until, before I wrote myself a rule to say, right, I'm giving myself until my 25th birthday to apply to all fire
How old were you
services.
at the time?
And this was when I was 24. So I was like, I'm at the end of my little rule to myself now. So there's probably not going to be anything else that's coming up on Firefront. Let's just get this process started.
Yeah.
So I started getting excited about that. I was still enjoying my retained life and everything. But now starting to get pumped for this new opportunity that, you know, each stage you pass, you're getting a bit more excited about starting your course and stuff like that. And then my own service decided to open up an internal recruitment. And I was like, oh, well, that chucks a spanner in the works, doesn't it? I was like, well, I'm not so stubborn as to not apply, and it would be sort of foolish not to. I've done some good things in my retained station. I'd worked really hard through my development.
Some good evidence I could use.
Precisely. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'll give it a crack. There's only 7 jobs. I'm not going to get one, but it'll just be worth the experience and worth the try. So you've got to be in it, haven't you, to try?
Absolutely.
So yeah, went through the stages, got the referral from my watch manager, and was successful with one of 7 jobs out of, I think they said 240 odd applicants. I was like, well, it was a bit embarrassing, because when the person phoned me from headquarters, they said, oh, Chris, you've been successful, you've got a job. And I was like, is it real?
Yeah.
Like, is this a prank or is this a joke?
Yeah.
He said, oh, you're not the first person to say that, mate, but no, this is genuine. You know, we'll send you the paperwork, whatever. And I was like, yes. Like,
Mate, I was full on. Honestly, I was like freaking tearful.
Yeah, I was as well.
That many, mate, full on welled me up.
Yeah.
Even like this last phase of stuff, I've done like 23 applications or promotion processes in the last few years to do my watch commander stuff. And everyone was saying like, dude, your face doesn't fit. You know, you're not, they don't like you, you know, for whatever reason. You're too much out there, you're too open, you're too much this and that and that and that and that. And I just found it so demoralizing that when I got the final yes, because I'd had so many phone calls which were like, hey Pete, it's so-and-so from headquarters, just wanted to say congratulations on the recent process. You met the pass mark for the interview, but somebody scored better than you, so unfortunately you haven't got this position. That was usually, so the first part of the conversation was always the same. Mm-hmm. So when I was successful, they were like, congratulations, you've met the mark, really well done through the process, I'd like to offer the position. But I was still in like conditioning. I was like, oh, that's really good, mate, really appreciate the phone call, thanks very much. And they were like, so when do you think you can be released from your current position to start? And I'm like, start what? And he's like, you got the job. And I was like,
oh wait, what?
Mate, I really apologize, that must have felt so rude, because like I genuinely thought you were about to tell me someone else got the position, and it was just like a ego massage for a second. Well done, thank you for applying, you did really well, but no. And that was like and again, it just hit me like a wave, because when you feel like the world's just saying no, yes, and then you go around the other side of the building, look through the window, no, and you go to the back door and no, and you're just like, maybe they just don't want me in there. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's that, maybe it's me, maybe it's the way I am, but I always think I'm like, control the controllables. And that's when I started like looking around other services and stuff like that, because especially with things like we have these promotion pools now, it's like you think you're in a position to get something, but it doesn't actually mean anything. You can be in there forever,
Yeah,
and never
yeah.
get a job. And like, I love you said this 25-year rule, because it's like, when is it shit or get off the pot?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? When am I like,
yeah.
okay, is it happening? Is that? No, it's not happening. I need to get up and go now.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep sitting there. So, oh, wait, 2 seconds. No, it didn't happen again. And like you say, oh, the transfer process, it didn't happen again. At one point, you've got to be like, okay, I've got to move on. I'm living in limbo.
Yes.
I'm living in this middle no man's land.
Agree.
But you got a position.
Yeah. I was chuffed to bits, really, and
What did you miss to say?
yeah, like over the moon, of
So I
course.
don't want you to do it.
No, she's my backer, and that, you know, she's always cheerleading for me and stuff. Bless her.
Girl.
But yeah, so that was there was a lot of change. Oh, I forgot to just rewind on the LFB process, because during that process, that's when I'd looked at the reserves.
Oh yeah.
So I joined a unit, and you know, I'm not ex-military. I'd just done a few months with them. Really cool bunch of guys doing some fun things, and again, I was like, okay, this is lighting my fire for being part of a team.
100%.
Like doing stuff, exercise, outdoors,
Navigating, outdoor, doing this. Yeah,
it
I
was
love
wicked.
that.
And then it was during the LFB processes. I said, oh, okay, this process has come up. Can I attend this LFB selection and then join you at where you're training this upcoming weekend? I said, well, not really. You're either with us on the Friday night or whenever it was. There was a clash of dates, basically. They said, look, like, that's your whole time career, mate. Go for that, and then
That's
come
fair
back
play
to
to
us
them.
if you feel like it.
Because some people just say the first bit and they're like, well, you're obviously not dedicated enough. It's not that, mate. It's just, you know, this is my full-time career. This is like involves my family and
Exactly.
you know, gets me money to produce my
You
life.
got it.
It's what I
Yeah,
really want to do.
yeah.
But some people can be really weird like that.
So they supported it, and they were like, yeah, just go, and then, you know, reapply or visit us again when the time is right, if it's right, and look after your primary interests first, which made the failed or the non-starting LFB recruitment such more of a kick in the
Yeah,
teeth.
you're like, I've said no to that. I went and did this, didn't get it.
And now I'm left
nowhere
with neither of the roles.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was greatly disappointing. But you know, the world has a funny way of showing you things sometimes. And then before I knew it, I was whole time in my own service, and it was almost a dream come. Well, it was a dream come true.
Yeah.
So that was that. That was my sort of beginnings into a whole time role through the restraint.
So let's fast forward back to when this first secondment came about. So you've been in the service for a few years, doing all your bits, you USAR operator, you're all that sort of jazz. You built up some skill sets.
I'm only a Pro B USAR operator now, just so you know.
Same thing, don't worry about it. And you were deployed into this centre. So bring us back into that world for a minute. You went on the first 4-week one, was it?
Correct. Yes.
Into an ICU, so an intensive care unit.
Yeah, ICU, or sometimes they're called a HDU, excuse me, high dependency unit, but ours was called an ICU. This was after the USAR team had done their recce or pathfinding sort of operation to see how it was going to run, how we were going to best benefit those teams. And then...
Because what you don't want is disaster tourists. People that just show up and like, oh yeah, I want to be part of it. What can you do?
Yeah.
You know freaking use. What
and
are
you
your
see
skill
that
sets?
in our sector, don't you?
Oh, you do, yeah. Just people showing up and like, oh yeah, I'm on that team. You know, don't do anything. You just like, you're in the freaking way.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to be in one of those units and just be in the way.
That was on our minds, on my mind. You know, you want to be contributing.
I'm just here shadowing, okay, for like a day. You're not coming in every freaking day just being in the way.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, how are you adding value?
Yeah.
So what did that look like moving into there? What were the expectations? What sort of stuff were you going to get involved in?
The main role before we committed to the hospital was all to do with patient proning. So this is moving the patient essentially to make sure their lungs are doing as best as they can under the COVID conditions. So you're turning
Patient proning.
Yeah.
Oh, as in like they're laying prone, supine,
Precisely.
blah blah blah.
Precisely. Yeah. So you've got on their, in layman's terms, on their front, on their back, and then we did something called the swim technique as well in between both of those, where you'd almost, if they're on their front, they'd be in a front crawl position with their right hand up towards their face, with their face looking right, left hand down by the hip, and then they would have a bit of a change round, so they'd then be on their front still, looking over to the left hand up by your face, right hand down by your right hip.
Just to see, because that gives various restrictions to your air pathway and stuff like that? Can you still breathe in this position? Can you still breathe in that position? Weight of the lung here, there.
You got it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So you're trying to keep that.
So is it like a daily thing you do with them all, or do you
hourly? Like not on the hour, but it's not every day. It's like depending on the condition of the patient, you're moving them maybe every 4 to 6 hours. So it's quite labour intensive, particularly when.
Freaking hell, yeah. So there's a whole job in itself.
Yeah.
For one person or two. I bet maybe have to do it in teams of two. Do you, or can you do it by yourself?
It was no, you can't do it by yourself. Like particularly proning from front to back, you could get away with
roll them off.
yeah. That would look horribly.
Oh shit, shit on the floor.
No, it's a serious operation, and we can go into more details about that. But yeah, so that was our primary role in that unit. I mean, we had to do a day of training first in the hospital, where they took loads of.
So like, don't steal stuff, don't touch people inappropriately.
Yeah, that was part A and B. No, but
that's a shame because we do that in the service all the time. So that's going to be a big behavioural change for us.
Sorry, you mean there's theft in the service, do you?
I would never want to comment.
No.
I think the FBU could probably tell us about how many meetings they've sat in on that regard.
Jeez.
Anyway.
Let's move on.
Not that FBU steal stuff, but anyway, we just... Yeah. So what did your intro involve in it?
Intro, a day at the hospital with the training team. We looked at... a bit of a CPR audit, just checking that all our CPR was up to scratch and any little...
What's the latest?
Refinements, on the CPR process?
30 to 2, 15 to 1 for kids, or what is it these
days?
Got
it, 15 to 2.
5 rescue breaths, no rescue breaths?
Yeah, you're all over it, yeah.
I don't know what they do now. I don't know, which one is it though? Is it 5 rescue breaths, no rescue breaths?
30, it depends on the condition, 30 to 2 adult, 15 to 2 child, and rescue breaths
half
for
breath,
child.
Mouth over the nose and everything.
Yeah,
or
little puffs.
Yeah,
that's it. So predominantly, I believe
you're not allowed to call them that anymore, by the way. But
what's that? Rescue puffs?
Little puffs. You can't just,
no.
It's not bad to do that. Okay, that's inappropriate. I'm going to challenge that.
We're PC here.
PC. Thank you very much. Carry on.
Right. So we did this training day, and it was a bit of an eye opener. Really, the people that they are recruited for the secondment deployment, whatever you want to call it, they were IEC trainers predominantly. So IEC instructors, immediate emergency care.
Careful with the mnemonics. We have to make sure we elaborate on them.
We do like a TLA.
We love a little bit of a TLA. Carry on. I'll go in a whole direction with that.
And what is a TLA, Pete? Just for the
I'm not going to say what a TLA is. I know I know the 3 Bs as well, but that doesn't help everything either.
No, something baffles brains.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah. Right, let's get there. Training, IEC trainers, or minimum IEC qualified. So you've got your ticket.
Now they have the FREX as well, don't they? First
responder emergency care, is
emergency
it?
Care, like
various levels,
3s and 4s on it.
That's it. Yeah, so it follows the same process as that, and it's basically our medical model in the fire service in the UK follows something along those lines anyway. But so we're all qualified in that, did the CPR assessment with that there, learnt how to move people on slide sheets and things, which was predominantly the proning role.
Which again, for you USAR operators, either probationary or when you do your lifting and moving, when you do casual handling, it's all slide sheets, bariatrics, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
we just
in your wheelhouse.
That's it, yeah. So we did that, and then there was a bit of an eye-opening module on suicide, which was a bit of a strange one because we didn't think. Well, I remember sat there thinking, "Oh right, what's this about then?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, the mental impacts of this virus and the nature of people's loved ones being in the hospital or receiving bad news of their own means that we've got to cover this module with you guys."
Was this a fear of you committing suicide or a patient?
No. We'd been screened just for our own psychological well-being.
And you passed?
I don't know how. Friends in high places?
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. No cash was exchanged for me, but obviously I slipped the net.
You did.
So I passed that. And, general physical screening by the OC Health. Are you okay in hot situations because of the nature of the PPE, blah blah blah. So that was all good, and then the suicide was for the patients, not for us. So suicide awareness training, what to look out for.
24-hour care still. Well, I mean, hospitals are depressing places. With the greatest of respect, lovely bubbly staff, but you're in like a sickness factory. It's like
absolutely,
it's just like everything's, the air feels like a bit dead, and it's like Groundhog Day. The lights are always on. It's a bit weird. Isn't it?
Yeah. And there was, you know, perhaps we'll touch on it later, but the some of the situations and stuff.
Surreal.
Yeah, and they're training us on, right, these are the sort of things around the hospital that you might see people try and take their own lives with. And you're like, oh, right. Oh, and in these rooms, this is a ligature cutting device.
A ligature.
So I'm like, what's a ligature? And they're like, oh, it's just any device that someone might use to sort of asphyxiate themselves by, you know, hanging some O2 therapy tubing or
Jesus.
on a door handle or something like that. And you're
You'd
like,
have to be really light to hang yourself on that. I feel like I would snap that.
yeah,
But
you'd
then
need,
again, you can
you'd
hang-
need a few, I think.
People do it with like fishing cord and stuff, though, don't they? 'Cause
Yeah,
it's hard-
yeah.
it's hard
And I
stuff.
think when you reach that mindset, you don't, you know, bless them.
And obviously, if you were that determined, there's like needles, scalpels, there's freaking everything. There's loads of stuff. Needs to be readily accessible for the clinicians and for the nurses, for the doctors, for the care technicians. So it's everywhere, I imagine.
Absolutely. But then they're putting, you know, they've got their own risk assessments that cover these things like, okay, is this patient mentally...
So was the expectation that you should identify this and intervene in some way or report it or do something?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you're going past somewhere and you see this happening, you've had your brief training. It's pretty straightforward how to cut some things off of someone, which we're all pretty au fait within our world.
What if
anyway.
they're self-harming? What if I'm like, you know, attacking myself?
Yeah. Well, in that
Is
instance,
it calling for security for restraint?
yeah, there's security on site, and you're not going to endanger yourself if they're carrying a blade, perhaps, or something like that.
You know what? Security guards in hospitals don't get paid a lot.
No,
I think
they're up
that's
against
such
it.
a really, really strangely honourable job. I'm like, whoa, that is just crazy working in them places.
I had a good chat,
Especially
with
when
them
you've got
recently.
like, I say, like people coming in that don't like the emergency services, like they're kicking and punching paramedics, and they're drunk or they're, you know, whatever. Crazy.
Yeah. So that was just, it was more of an eye opener and a perspective check, really, that okay, this is a challenging environment for people, and it is likely. And later on, we had someone trying to jump off the roof of the multi-story car park, and you sort of questioned the nurse, we can't go out that way because someone's on the roof, and you're like, all right, and they're just quite nonchalant about it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's like
Happens.
quite a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was just eye-opening as such.
Yeah. So what other training? You had suicide training, the CPR, was that it?
Suicide training or awareness, CPR, we did like, you know, like I said about the slide sheets and the moving the patients, and then a bit of like almost lifting and moving, but just on a patient front. So you've got these inflatable chairs and mattresses, and they trained us how to lift the patient. Yeah, that's the one on the Ambos. It's the same concept.
That name wrong anyway.
Essentially.
But it's something. It's a big inflating chair. You slide underneath them.
You are along the right lines with the name. Yeah,
That's going to bother me.
we'll look it up.
Something like that. Anyway.
That rings a bell.
Yeah, I think that's right. So you underwent all of that. What's the PPE crack?
Strong PPE game in there.
I'll bet.
So you've got,
You'd like that contract, wouldn't you?
what's that?
Supplying PPE.
Yeah. I think
you are laughing.
someone made at least a tenner out of that.
Yeah, I'll bet.
PPE. So you've got the different zones. I remember walking into the hospital and seeing one of the signs on the door, big red sign, COVID red zone, do not enter, or, you know, not without PPE. And I was like, that's when it hit home, like, oh, this is real. We're here.
There's COVID in there. Someone has definitely got
gotta-
COVID in that room.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the door just opened.
Yeah. I remember just staring at it thinking, oh, like, this is seeing what we've seen all over the news for the best part of a year, and now I'm here in it.
Yeah.
And you're like, these guys have been working here for a year, and it's just like
Surreal.
business as usual for them. Like,
Yeah.
wow. But yeah, sorry, I digress. PPE.
No, you don't at all.
Yeah, PPE game. So outside in the corridor, you had like a big PPE station with like as many gloves as you need, all the different sizes, aprons, masks, face
Hypochondriac
shields.
stream.
It was, yeah, it was perfect for me. Yeah.
Let's squirt alcohol all over my face.
Yeah, alcohol gel. Oh, I've never used so much alcohol gel.
Was there ever a fear? Not a fear as such, maybe.
Getting drunk from washing your hands.
Yeah, that's where I'd go
You're going
straight
there,
away.
yeah.
Yeah. No, like, you know, when we have this thing where people not give out. But if you take too many antibiotics, it naturally damages your own immunity. And like, you know, I've got kids, and like I let my kids play in the dirt and eat sand and stuff like that. Mainly when we haven't made any tea. Do you know what I mean? Just like,
Saw you eating sand earlier.
yeah, well, lead by example. I wouldn't do anything I ask my kids to do. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but I would do that as well to try and get them to strengthen their immunity. You know what I mean? Whereas they've got like their grandma is always like, she's like alcohol gel on the hip. You know what I mean? Have you dropped anything? Bang, smack a bit of this on you. Go on, let's sterilize together. And I'm like, I worry a little bit about, or I'm interested to think if people that live in like the hospitals and schools and stuff like that, they're always sanitizing and they're always getting sick. I just feel like it must damage your natural immunity a little bit.
It's going down the drain, isn't it?
Because it's, and maybe, I don't know. I mean,
I agree with you.
Yeah. And I get why they're doing it. It makes sense. We're trying to stop the big scary stuff. But then you damage your immunity to all the little stuff. Like, unless I'm faced with somebody that's got a horrific disease, I'm like, don't worry about it. You know, I'm just going to try and stay fit and healthy, stay strong, and all that sort of stuff. Because I know we spoke earlier about training and stuff like that. You were obviously, you own a gym with your brother. You do a lot of fitness training. But when you said you went into that first thing, you were like, this is like mental load is a lot. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep training as hard as I was. What was the adaptation when you first went in there in terms of your own personal life? Did you stay away from home?
No. So just touching on that earlier story, they redeployed me to a closer hospital in the end, which in hindsight was a massive blessing, because the sort of mental exhaustion kicked in, and when I'm smashing it up and down the motorway on commuting to the, you know, you're like, oh, this is a dull drive, and I've done, you know,
should listen to a podcast.
I might have listened.
Don't know any good ones.
Yeah, do you know any?
No.
But yeah, so that was a blessing, but it did take its mental toll on me. Probably sort of week 2, you're kind of finding your feet a little bit, and that, and then I don't know. The initial secondment was supposed to last 4 weeks, and then they asked us if we could extend by another 2 weeks, which our team, we all said, okay, yeah.
Were you operating with another member of your team every day? Was it watched-based stuff? Did you rotate through? Were you always with the same team? Were you always with the same nurses? Did you follow a shift pattern in there, or were you like working with different people every day?
Right, so there's a few questions in there, wasn't there?
How did you work?
Yeah, so the initial idea was to have a team of 4, so a small team of 4, which was perfect for that particular unit, and that gives you the right numbers to get around a bed space and prone the patient, also supplemented by those with medical, you know, training and background. Like,
have you seen the cockpit? Have you seen the pit stop stuff with the IEC style training? Because that talks about the 4-person model. You know, 1 on the head, side, log roll here, 1 person taking details. That's a really So if there's only 1 of you, you're here. If you get a second, they're here. If you get a third, they're here. If you get a fourth, so 4 is that magic number. Anything beyond that, it can get a little bit messy.
How many on a truck? 4.
There you go.
So we train for 1, 2, and 3 in our service, but then the 4th is your kind of OIC or on the cards or something, if you've got enough numbers for that. So anyway, one of our team didn't pass a medical screening, so we ended up in a team of 3, which was still manageable, and we could still do the job that we needed to. So that was our unit, myself and 2 other lads. One of those was our team leader for that thing. We were given, our shift patterns were given to us by the nurse sister or whoever's in charge of that unit.
Yeah, sister of the ward. It's like I think they're just called sisters. They're like the shift managers, aren't they?
That's it. Yeah, and there didn't seem to be any sort of rhyme or reason to what shifts and when.
Still call them matrons. It's like matrons.
That was it. Yeah,
the matron.
Matron. Yeah, she was sound. Really looked after us, made us feel welcome.
Does a matron have to be a woman?
Unknown, but I doubt it.
I don't know.
Not in this day
I
and
imagine
age,
this day and age, but I wonder if they still call them a matron. Because like a nurse is a nurse is a nurse, man, woman, whatever. But a matron feels like a feminine word.
It does, yeah.
Don't know. Digress. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah. So that was us. That was our little team, trying to make as positive impact as we could on their bigger team. Yeah, So
you were doing predominantly the rotation, the shift and move in. Was that the majority of the first 6 weeks?
It turned out not to be in the end. So that was our role on paper. And
did they need somebody in brain surgery?
Yeah, so that's where I came in. Yeah.
It's that old skit, isn't it, where somebody's like, can anybody speak Indian? Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Can anybody be a tennis? Yeah, I can do that. And then you can't do anything.
No.
It's like, yeah.
But no, so yeah, we ended up, like, I'd say we'd be reporting to a HCA, It's another TLA there. So HCA is a healthcare assistant. So that would be our main go-to on every shift. And they'd sort of give us our brief for the day and say, right, here's what needs doing, here's what patients. You'd have a team briefing for the whole team coming on to duty.
Nice.
With the off-going OIC, in essence, from the previous shift, which would give you an overall idea of the situation on the ward. But then throughout the day, we would be sort of working alongside that healthcare assistant and doing as he or she requests. But it ended up being not just patient work. We ended up doing loads of admin around the ward,
Really?
transferring patients from one ward to another, taking them outside. We made
Not to the roof, though.
No, definitely not. No. That prevented us from taking one outside. So, we just, what it's like in our world, mate. Yeah. Like, we just try and do as best we can. We say,
yeah. We're like, I can do that, mate. Of course I can.
Yeah, we're between
can somebody
jobs
I'll do that.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about a lot of frontline operators, that they haven't got an ego insofar as they're like, if you want me to go manage traffic, I'll go manage traffic. If you need somebody to move the casualty, if somebody gets to wear BA, I'll wear BA. But you know what? If you need me to go and send some radio messages, I'll go send radio messages.
You got it. Yeah.
That's the people you need.
Yeah.
People that don't feel the need to be centre of the stage spotlight. No. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not either setting up the water carrier. It's a rubbish job. Someone else can do that. Get the probie.
Yes, you got it. Yeah.
I need you to go and do it. So were you able to sort of develop relationships with some of these, professional relationships with some of these, can't need some customers, they're not casualties either.
Patients.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. But that must have been quite surreal because they weren't how long term are some of these people in there? And
well, some of them were there for our whole secondment.
Really?
And they'd been there for months before.
Wow. So it's that whole long COVID game.
Mm-hmm. And, some of them were touch and go. So, yeah, with the ones that are like conscious and able, you are building relationships with those people. And even the ones that aren't, who are fully, intubated and they're unconscious and they don't even really know you're there, you sort of get to know
as
them.
a result of COVID?
Say again?
As a result of COVID or something else?
What, as in they're fully under?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're if they're
in an induced coma?
Correct.
Why? Because they're breathing. Oh, I'm answering your own question. Why? Sorry.
Yeah, so the if they get to a certain stage, it becomes more beneficial for them to be under anaesthetic, and
because it's such a stress for their body to try and support its own.
I believe
was that because the breathing had broken down so much?
Yeah, so you're looking at like their oxygen saturation levels and things like that, and you're looking at some of the OBS machines next to the patient, and there's all bells and whistles going off and beeps and what have you. But you're looking at the SATs, and they're like, we'd be having a moment if it was on a roadside, and that was the SATs that we're reading on one of our casualties, and they're like SATs are at 80%. Wow. That's but they're doing okay.
So we always do the 94 or more rule.
Correct.
It's 94% saturation oxygen.
Yeah.
Give them some oxygen.
But yeah, so they're
not bouncing along happily, but they're at 80%.
Yeah, some even lower. Yeah. And this, I guess, I'm no consultant yet, but
nice. You gotta have a drink.
Yeah. But I'm guessing that
what a great story that'd be.
Yeah. There was a
armed services turned firefighter did a bit of stint in here, and I went bang. I'm going to get my doctorate.
There was a ex-police officer turned consultant.
Doesn't make him a bad person though, just because he's in the police. They try. Everyone makes mistakes. It's okay.
Police need heroes too. Don't
they
they
do.
Yeah.
It's an important thing. Sorry. So, induced coma, long COVID. Are they? Yeah, I guess that because obviously a lot of people died from it, but there would have been those people hanging on. Mm-hmm. So I always say to people, one of the last things to go is people's hearing. So you're trying to develop a relationship with somebody that's in a coma. Mm-hmm. You're still talking and still
yeah. Like if you got the unconscious or nearly unconscious casualty on the roadside or wherever we might find them, it's always respectful to talk to them, let them know what you're doing. So and if that is the case, that it's the last thing to go, the last of the senses that's active whilst you're still semi-conscious. We're talking to the patients all the time, saying, I'm just going to move this arm so-and-so, or let me readjust your pillow, or might comb your hair, and and you're sort of just reassuring, and you can see it on their OBS, on their charts, like the heart rate, just keep them relaxed and stuff, and do the best you can for that patient.
So when you're in there with them people, let's very brief. I know we didn't even write it down. Let's cover vaccinations for a second. I bet you were right up to the tippy top on everything you needed to have as soon as you needed to have it. Is everybody in there Have they got the real good stuff, not the general stuff that we never they're triple jabbed or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you have to do anything extra to work in there? Like,
No.
have to take another thing?
No. At that time, I believe the requirement was, I'm just trying to think to when I had my jabs.
I don't know.
I think you had to have at least one of the jabs or it be in process, maybe. So that was, you had
So when you're in there with the patients, how much wrapped and strapped up to the nines are you? Are you goggles and glasses and masks?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, the
all
PPE.
the time.
Only when you're in COVID confirmed. So you've got these different zones, like we talked the red zone or the hot zone. So you'd get on, well, I may as well go through the PPE donning and doffing. You'd be out in the green zone, not like Matt Damon's green zone, like,
No.
That's different. So you'd be outside. Oh God,
Weapons down, we're heading in.
yeah. And us three would be at the PPE station, put on a pair of nitrile gloves, and then you'd put on a full length apron. So this is like from right by your collarbone all the way down to near your ankles, sort of thing. And then that's got a full sleeve on it as well.
Okay.
And then you'd tie that up behind your back.
You're
And
not allowed to have your watch out.
no watches, bare below the elbow was the policy. So we're wearing scrubs, like like all the other team there. Yeah, so
I think it'd be weird not to have a watch with me.
I've only just started wearing a watch, so it was
Oh, yeah.
quite normal for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I just get so used to glancing at it. Anyway,
So yeah, so
bare below the elbow.
bare below the elbow, and that's purely for infection control.
Yeah.
So you're not getting
Because you
anything.
do a full proper how to wash your hands properly.
You got it. Yeah.
Surprised how many people don't.
I didn't know how to wash my hands until I'd seen. Like,
I don't.
No.
My missus shows me how to wash my bits and stuff like that.
Does she?
Well, because she knows best, right?
After you've been eating sand.
It's just the safest thing to do. I'm rarely supervised as an adult. I think this adulting thing is very dangerous.
It is, yeah.
Rarely anybody is checking what I'm doing.
Don't really like it.
I need music video.
Yeah.
So you
PPE,
are nitriles on,
Nitrile
full length,
gloves,
all the way
full
to the
length
wrist.
apron, all the way to the wrist, and then you've got a proper mask, which back on the training day we got face fit
Saying there's
tested for.
things like that aren't proper masks.
Controversial,
son.
I think.
You had a proper
FFP3,
mask,
yeah.
whatever. I don't know.
So yeah, it's not real crimped around your nose and right underneath the chin there. And
Did you ever get used to that? I hate
not
wearing
really,
a mask.
no. But
Yeah, I don't feel it
just
was
had
like
to.
partially restricted breathing, like when you're wearing the proper ones. It's like
Yeah.
anyway.
So that, and then
Just
you've
wear
got
goggles?
full face shield.
Oh, the visor things.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to recognise each other wearing all that stuff.
Well, this is the next
Just
thing.
say,
So
"Oi."
then you got name badge. So on the
They've
sides,
thought about it.
that's it. You got it. You've got a permanent marker pen and a sticker, and then you're just slapping that on the front of your
Every day?
thing. Every time you change, not every day.
Every time you change.
Yeah, and this is multiple times throughout the day. So fresh sticker each time, because all of that is going in the bin in a second.
Frickin' hell.
So yeah, so I'll get one of the others, because I can't write, I'll get one of them to do my name badge.
I bet you would stick it on yourself and then be like,
Upside
I
down.
can't. Sierra. I don't know how it goes.
So no, so yeah, when you can't do up your apron behind your back or whatever, you're helping each other out, and you're getting all geared up together in there. And prior to that,
How long does that
obviously, by the end, we'd nailed it, and we'd sort of done in a couple of minutes, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
But yeah, and before that, obviously, you've got your brief, right, guys? Here's what we need you to do. Go and get donned up, and in you go, and then you walk into
Just
the hot
change
zone.
from each patient to patient.
Absolutely.
Oh
So,
my god.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're cross-contaminating.
I know. But
So
you've
you've got
gone
double
in, you've
gloves.
switched round James, and then you've got to take it all off, permanent marker again, and then go in the next room to switch round.
So, well, you've got
Dave.
an interim layer, if I remember correctly. Testing my knowledge now, Pete, it was about a year ago. So, when you get bedside, you're then putting another apron on over the top of the first one. This is like a partial
How
apron.
warm is that stuff?
It's toasty, mate.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like just imagine just dressing yourself up in bin bags.
Yeah.
And just doing your work in a load of bin bags. You've got a bit of breathability on your back where
Yeah, a
there's
little bit there.
yeah. So then
So
you
were you
put-
just down to like nothing underneath, or were you like just in your pants?
I did
or
ask.
like,
They said no, you can't do that. So
yeah,
no,
it's
you
a
were
bit
just
appropriate.
we were just
So you wouldn't
wearing.
be sweating like crazy there.
Yeah, it was
Especially with all
warm.
the cross contamination. You can't take a water bottle through.
No. You're just going in as you are.
Just drink stations everywhere. Because I'm like proper. We'll
Gotta be
pause in a minute 'cause I
hydrated.
need to go and get some more water. But that'd be a killer for me.
But you're not in there for overly long, so you're probably not in there under all that PPE for more than an hour. So then you're getting out again. You're getting some semi-fresh air. But yeah, you're changing. You're putting a small apron on and another pair of gloves between each patient. I can't remember exactly between COVID confirmed patients. It might have been a full change if I remember right. But then on your exit, it's a lot of. As I said,
obviously you're testing every day as well.
Yeah, we're testing.
Were they doing lateral flows or the whatever's?
Yeah, I think we did a lateral flow test at the start and end of every set of shifts, if I can remember correctly.
Keep sticking up your nose.
So, yeah, So kept on top of those. You know, I was almost. I mean, home life looked different for me because I'm like, right, well, I'm going into this unit and I am.
Were you worried about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pinging your missus all the time.
Yeah,
like her catching anything and not being able to go to work or whatever.
And this was part of the discussion before I committed to role.
Yeah.
You know, like I've said, she's backed me through and through for all different projects and years and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so we actually went for separate bedrooms for the first bit of it.
I remember when she started messaging me, yeah.
Did she? And she said, I'm in the spare room.
Now,
yeah.
Mate. We're halfway there to the plan, Pete. Come on round.
Yeah.
That must have sucked.
Yeah,
I remember my brother-in-law, when he got pinged, he went to stay at a friend's house or something because they've got kids. And I was like, wow. Just, again, the things you don't think.
That's it.
It's a massive effect on everybody. So you guys are separate bedrooms?
Yeah, for a bit. I think, I remember right.
And then human nature took its course and you thought, this sucks.
Yeah. But bless her, yeah. So that was that. And
no kissing. Everything else is fine.
But this talks about, you know, impact on personal life and things like that.
Huge.
I was isolated from all my usual colleagues. Yeah, I built some good relationships with the two lads and we had a real good time and a good laugh and morale was high and stuff. But I'm taken away from my retained team.
You're the COVID kid.
Yeah, so you weren't allowed to go on there. So didn't get to see those guys. They checked in on me and stuff over the 6 weeks. And then obviously...
also they've got their own lives going on. So
yeah.
And that's the thing when somebody's off like on a thing or off on sick or off on wherever, you've got to consciously think to check in with them. Yeah. Because you're like, life's still going forwards. Mm-hmm. You know, we're still just crazy as hell. And you're like, has anybody spoke to Sarah today?
Yeah.
Like, no, man, I haven't spoke to her in a week. Shit, that's bad. Really bad. So you managed to sustain a little bit of contact, or?
Yeah, well, a few of them checked in with me, which is always nice. And then
you can get some free nitrile gloves or something.
That's it. Yeah.
Can you find me?
yeah. Give me some scrubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then obviously for the whole time, because it was a secondment, i.e., you're being seconded away from your primary role. Yeah, obviously was not going in there either.
Skills fade.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll talk about that later with the more recent ambulance one for 2 months.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, right, I'm off the tools and I'm out of the loop. But yeah, 6 weeks was just about manageable. But then I was in between a station move as well. So I kind of like put in my transfer notice, went on the deployment, did another course on another project, and then I joined my new station. And it's kind of like, see ya.
Surreal. There's going to be a lot more of that now, though. Like I say, with people changing, promoting.
Yeah, it's flexible. It's fluid.
All over the place.
Yeah, it's good.
So take us back to some of the patients that you were interacting with, because you blew my mind with the one in coma. So are they the worst of the worst, or what sort of ranges? What's the average time somebody was in the ward for? Because you would have had not your walk-ins, but like so-and-so's got COVID, they've been brought in on an ambulance, they got COVID.
That's it, yeah. So I think, if I remember correctly, and I could have this wrong, so don't quote me on it, but if your SATs are at a certain height, you're going straight up to ICU. If they're below a certain parameter perhaps, and then you might just be on an O2 mask in ICU, conditions monitored, given the meds, given the care, etc. The level of care in that unit is phenomenal.
Yeah. What's the day in the life of a patient when they're just in there on oxygen? What is it? Meals a day, sit, watch TV? Do you have to stay in your room?
Yeah, it's pretty mundane. Yeah, and like some of the longer term ones of, almost building relationships, like the nursing team and the ICU team are there almost mates, if you know what I mean. Like they know them so well, they're having chats where appropriate.
I read of a firefighter that began a relationship with a nurse that they were working with, and like now I think they're married or something.
Oh wow!
I was like, typical firefighter, gone in on a project. Hello, love. Yeah, I'm a firefighter. Yeah, I don't like to talk about it.
There's another couples podcast episode for you then.
No doubt, brother. Yeah. I'm sure there's loads of them, and so it should be. I met my missus at work. Hell, why not?
So yeah, day in the life, and is pretty much as you said it there. Food, try and rest
What's
up.
food like these days?
It looked all right, to be fair. I
Didn't have any.
No, well, we had canteen food, not off the trolley food.
We had the good stuff.
Yeah, we had the good stuff. But no, yeah, we were looked after.
The patient's
on the food
like,
front.
"Oh, share my dessert with you." You know, I'm not eating that shit. No, I'm joking. I'm sure it was fantastic.
It was fun actually. On one of the patients, they didn't leave. They left some food behind at the end, and sort of thought maybe the nurse who I was with wasn't quite catching my humour, shall I say? And I said, "Oh, so and so's left this bit of custard." I said, "Oh, did you want to like finish that, because otherwise it's just going to go in the bin and it's a bit wasteful." And this is a COVID patient, of course. And the nurse turns to me and looks, and she's like a bit confused and says, "Oh, no, I don't tend to share food with the patients here." Yeah.
Talking down the nose to you. I was like trying to have a laugh with you. Yeah. We don't do that, Chris. Very inappropriate.
I went a bit dry humoured there.
Yeah. No one's watching. Should we split it? That's against the rules. Okay, so yeah.
But no, they're professional in there. They're really sound. But yeah, going back to the patient, if the patient then deteriorates and they're not maintaining SATs and good oxygen levels with the interventions that have taken place, they're then going into a place of being intubated and being put under general anaesthetic, tubes going down, the machine's breathing for them at this point. And that, yeah, but the discussions are had beforehand, you know, right, you're not
with the person.
Yeah. So the nurse,
so they're still like present. And
yeah,
cognitive.
they're just struggling to breathe. And, you know, it's like, can you imagine trying to let your body function on 60-50% SATs?
Yeah,
it's not happening, is it? How are you still conscious?
Of laboured breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see
they're suffocating.
What's that film? Deadpool.
Yes.
You know Deadpool when he gets stuck in the tank?
Yes, vaguely.
Because they try and cause bodily stress to cause a reaction in the body.
Yeah, that was it.
So they take his oxygen sats all the way down and he's constantly suffocating for days and days and days, and then he mutates. But it's similar to that without the traumatic, like being tortured bit, where like you're constantly, you're just above the baseline.
That's
you're about to die, then you're not. Then you're about to die, then you're not. And your body's just constantly bouncing off it, because also from an adrenaline perspective, your body's constantly going to keep dumping, trying to stay alive. So yeah, switching them over to that, because it's not going to be sustainable for the body to break down.
No, yeah, and you know, in that stage, they're going to start looking at how are we going to get nutrition in? They're not eating by this point. They've got a sort of a nasal gastric tube going, so you're getting fed through your nose down into your stomach with a liquid feed, and hoping that some nutrition's going in that way. If that doesn't work, you're then looking at nutrients going directly into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
If that, you know, as
IV
things,
nutrients, yeah.
You got it, yeah. And, you know.
You heard about these banana bags?
No.
That. So like, it's a nutritional IV full of all kinds of good stuff, nutrients and vitamins and minerals and all this sorts of stuff. I think some sort of alkalines and all that sort of jazz in there as well. And a lot of athletes use them, but apparently like a lot of doctors and stuff and nurses and stuff like use them because they're huge vitamin and mineral dumps that you can put straight into your body, and you can buy them. I'm going to try and buy one online. So people have them sometimes like if they have a hangover or they feel terrible, and it's just an IV. You can just tap it into your vein and you have it. And obviously it probably makes you look like a drug addict, but it's a normal IV full of all great vitamins and nutrients, stuff like that. So you don't have to eat it. It's just like a time-saving efficiency. It's like a biohack.
Yeah.
People are in the biohacks and all that sort of stuff. And I think it sounds like a cool idea, but I think people will be petrified of it. Just the idea of sticking a needle in your body anywhere makes you sound like a druggie. But banana bag, Google it. If I can find a note for it, I'll put it in the notes of this podcast. It's a weird thing, but I know a lot of people do it. And I know you can go to places, like Joe Rogan speaks about it. You can go to like clinics where they'll set you up on one. Yeah. And you just absorb it over 20 minutes or whatever, and you feel amazing.
Sounds like something you'd want after ISAR selection, maybe.
After anything, yeah. After ISAR, after heavy workout.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a protein shake 10x.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get all the vital nutrients straight into the bloodstream. It's not got to go through your membrane barrier. It's not got to go through your stomach lining. Straight in there.
Interesting concept.
Yeah, but obviously, like I said, they're
same
there.
Principle.
Yeah, same principle. People that can't do it themselves, so you just want to sit at a freaking desk and work all day, get yourself tapped into one of them. Probably wouldn't advise it. We're not too far away from the Matrix, probably at that point. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So those people, they get switched over
Yes.
into a self-induced coma under the hope that they're... Well, what are they taking to stop COVID? Antibiotics of some form? Or they just get the COVID jab and try and recover?
This is well beyond my realms of medical knowledge now, but I remember them talking about a particular window, 5 to 8 day window after they're sort of committed into hospital, is kind of telltale of where it might go for them, be it non-survivable or survivable, essentially. I can't remember exactly what the indicators were, but like I remember one nurse talking to me about one of her patients who was not doing so well just on the O2 therapy mask. Like these patients are on 100% O2 and their body's showing like we said earlier, 60% or whatever, and you're like, that's not working.
Ain't working.
And their lungs are so clogged up with this virus, this mucus, and it's essentially
So
just drowning in it.
Do they cough it up? Do they hock it up?
Well,
or they just can't, or what?
Yeah, you can't. They couldn't clear it, if you know what I mean. So you're putting suction down there, trying to clear it all, and you've got tubes going in down their throat alongside the other tubes, if I remember correctly.
Which you can't really be conscious for.
No, and they're trying to keep things clear, and this is why we're moving them. This is why we're proning them to try and keep it loose and from building up in the lungs, so that you're essentially
so you're moving them unconscious.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
The conscious ones, you can encourage them to move side to side. Right, we need to move you now. Sometimes
music on.
Yeah. Slightly different, but yeah. So you can encourage them to move, but the ones who are fully under, you're doing everything.
Yeah,
you're
so that
moving
is a
for them.
4-person job.
Gotcha. At least, on our first day, we were showed the whole operation. We were given a briefing sheet on it. Right, that the firefighter stands there, the nurse stands there, firefighter here, nurse there. At the head end, you've got an anaesthetist or a consultant who manages the airway, and it's all on them. Overseeing it all is a nurse or someone of rank or qualification who's going through a briefing sheet. Yeah, and you've got a checklist, and the consultant, you're going, okay, that's done, and you're like, okay, well, this is quite similar to some things we might do in our work, and they're not going to remember all of these strict procedures to make the best possible outcome for that patient. So, let's just
prompt sheet.
Refer to the prompt sheet.
Absolutely, prompt sheet every time. Yeah, get rid of your pride and just say prompt sheet.
That's it.
Prompt sheet out,
and it worked. Eventually, at first, it took them a bit of time to build up some confidence in us. Understandably, I mean, we're in their house now, and we're going in there, and we're here to help, but you're the professionals. And it was a bit daunting at first, but after we showed worth and value, they really took us under their wing, Pete, and we felt like part of the team. And our TL's constantly badgering them to say, like, how can we help more? Like, what else can we do? Would you mind folding up the laundry or the new scrubs that have just been delivered? No, we're all over it. Just give us stuff to do that makes your job easier. Yeah, that's the idea. I remember one bloke came up to us, and when you can see the exhaustion in someone's eyes and that burnout, and he just looked at us and said, "Oh, you're the reason that I've had a tea break today." Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, right, it's been like that, has it?" Yeah, it was pretty full on, but so that was the turning operation of mainly the proning is for those who are fully intubated and they're not moving anywhere themselves. They're paralysed, and you're helping move them to help that build up in the lungs to be as it's not blocking up the lungs essentially. But
past a certain point, it's going to
drown.
You're drown.
Yeah, and that was a fear because I think it circulated in media maybe or something. But one of the nurses said to us, she had a patient we might talk about who said, I'm pretty fearful about going under the anaesthetic and being intubated because I know that reduces my outcome of survival. Yeah, and she's having that conversation with this patient, and you're like, oh right, like they know, and they're going under anaesthetic, not knowing if they're going to wake up again.
In the public sector now, people have got that preloaded in their mind about what might happen. Mm. Is there a point of no return with stuff?
Yes, yeah. In my opinion, we spoke with one particular intensive care unit nurse. Bearing in mind, these patients have got round-the-clock care, 24/7. There is one person at minimum with them at all times. And that was like, oh wow. So it is one-to-one care with a highly skilled nurse looking after that person, doing an obs chart like you've never seen before. Like it's the size of this desk, and all the observations are taken. Probably take nearly
massive, like A3 or even A1s. You got at the end of the freaking
big plinth.
Yeah, at the end of the table.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
So yeah,
it's not ridiculous, but it's like intense.
It is.
What would I call intensive care? Anyway,
or is it intense like when you go camping?
No, different intense.
That's a different.
We'll Google it. Don't worry.
Okay.
So yes, when it looks like there's it's not going
no return. Yeah. So at that point, they're obviously from the patients that we saw, they're all under anaesthetic. They're all intubated and all that jazz. And essentially, you are providing the best environment, or the nurses and team are providing the best environment for that person to make a recovery almost on their own. So they're supplementing all the body's basic needs. You're adding oxygen, the machine's doing the breathing for you. You're adding all the meds in, all the nutrition. You're turning them to look after their skin. You're combing their hair. You're brushing their teeth. You're essentially helping them for their body.
Did you get trained how to brush teeth?
That was an on-the-job training, but I did do some teeth brushing actually. Weird. It was very peculiar. So
I remember back brushing my kids' teeth. It never went well.
No.
I'm not sure we did it properly. It was a traumatic event.
For you or for them?
For both. More for them, I think, than me. But I imagine if they're not conscious.
Yeah, so, some of them are conscious, some are... so let's not forget that you've got some that are conscious who have been either extubated, so they've come out of their coma, or they're at a stage where they're recovering from that extubation, if that's the right word for it, and... They've lost all use of their limbs, Pete. So they can barely, move their head around because of the severity of the impact. So the longer they've been under the anaesthetic, the less their body is doing.
Yeah.
So their muscles are inactive. They're not moving by their own means. They're only moving because of us. So you get this massive muscle wastage. And
how quickly can that occur, though? Surely not.
Again, don't quote me, but I think it's
days.
Maybe it's after 10 to 14 days, approximately. Could have that wrong, but I remember the nurses telling us about a time where they'd like them to be extubated so that they don't go down that route, because then you're looking at potentially many months or years of physical recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, as we're moving some of these patients, you're sort of like looking underneath their arm.
Yeah, sores and stuff.
Well, there shouldn't be any sores, but it's more the muscle that's gone.
Yeah.
But the skin remains. So you helping them to lift their knees up, because they can't even lift their own knee up when they're lying in their bed there. And there's just this like a big piece of skin sagging down, bless them, underneath, where the muscle has all, I guess, catabolized itself. And it's you don't use it, you lose it, and it's not being used, so it's gone.
Wow.
So they're sort of sat there in a bed. You're having to feed them. Let's remember that this is some of the more severe cases, of course, and you're feeding them, doing all their basic needs, and they can just about nod or blink their eyes. And this is where all the other elements of the team come in, and you've got the physiotherapists and the talking people, because at this point you've lost your ability to talk now, because your voice cords haven't been exercised for X amount of time. So you're retraining an adult how to speak again.
That is just weird and surreal.
Very. And you've got there's a cycling machine. So this big cycling machine would come across, and you'd take a few of you to move it and wheel it across the bed. You'd help the patient lift their legs into the pedals, and there'd be pads to go behind the knees. And then you would assist them with turning, and they can barely turn the pedals on this machine. But then you start looking at the rehab work, and it's not like you've just survived COVID. You've had a close call with death, but then you're under this program for however many weeks. Some of them were told, or I remember one of them being told, you might be on ventilation for life. So yeah, and this was actually he was in the public sector in stuff. I can't really share too many details, but we had a good relationship with this gent, and he was told that at one point that, okay, I'm sorry, but it might look like
ventilator for life.
Yeah, bearing in mind he can't walk and can barely move his arms at this point as well. I don't know if that was the outcome in the end. But
tell you what, if you try when you have people like that and you have someone trying to tell them COVID ain't real, Jesus.
well, we could open up a can of worms there.
No, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have just been ridiculous. So you mentioned, I remember when we had a discussion before, we made notes about it, and I'm going to forget it all anyway, but you said about the butterfly effect.
Yeah, it was the butterfly sign. So I noticed on the side of one of the nurse's desks just this laminated piece of paper with a butterfly on it. And I sort of didn't take any notice of it at the time. I was like, maybe like someone's little and sent them a butterfly, a piece of artwork or something like that. And again, being a bit naive to it, not in their world. We're in their world now. Just didn't take any notice of it. Then later on, I saw the same sign moved and put up outward facing in the patient's bedroom. And they're in their own cubicle off the side of the main ward there. And I was like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to like pry or anything, but how come the butterfly sign's now in their room? And this is a patient who I'd been chatting to and learned about his history in one of our emergency services and stuff like that, and built up a bit of rapport with this gent. Really kind. Actually helped that same person with a catheter insertion as well.
Nice.
So we'll come back to the butterfly, but I was walking past his room when he was first early admitted, and one of the nurses just sort of stuck his head out and said, "Oh, excuse me, can you help me?" And I'm like, yeah, what do you want? He's like, "I'm doing a catheter insertion, I need some help." I'm like, "Oh, I am a firefighter, you are aware of that, yeah?" He's like, "Yeah, don't worry, like we'll be fine. I just need extra pair of hands." No. All
right.
this is the nurse.
Stick it in myself.
Yeah. So bless this gent. I'm chatting away to him, just sort of giving a bit of moral support.
So he's obviously conscious.
Yeah.
This nurse is trying to.
You got it.
Put the catheter
and
in.
there's blood coming out and everything, and he's saying, "Oh, can you hold the bowl whilst there's blood coming straight out of the tube that's in his penis down into the bowl?" And the guy's sort of wincing in pain.
Oh, God.
Holding this bowl that's filling up with blood, and then trying to maintain a conversation with this gent who's in a lot of pain, but he's so brave.
Why do you have to put because they can't wee by themselves.
Yeah, so that he had some separate issues that were non-COVID related, hence why he was kept outside.
There was
of
a
the hot
nurse
zone.
sticking something in his jap's eye.
Yeah.
That was part of the problem. I've got some issues I'd like to discuss.
Yeah,
What, you're
yeah.
sticking a plastic tube down my willy.
You got it. It was wide as well. Blimey.
The tube or the phallus?
Oh, and the tube.
Phallic.
Yeah. No, but yeah. So anyway, so I built a bit of rapport with him in what was a bit.
Did
of
they lube it?
Yeah, God, yeah. You got KY jelly going all-
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Just squirt across the room as you come in.
That's it, mate.
KY
yeah.
stat.
So I was like standing there thinking, Jesus, 4
With
weeks.
all due respect, was it a male nurse?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. I was going to say, because might be easier for a guy to have a go than
Yeah,
a woman.
he knows the kit, doesn't he?
He knows the kit.
You got it.
How far does it have to go in?
It was concerning how
The
far
amount
it went
of
to go.
tubage that disappeared.
I could be wrong on this, but I think it went all the way to the bladder. And don't quote me on that again. I'm not a
That's right,
medical.
we're not recording.
We're not. But yeah,
So-
it's making me wince at the thought
And
of it.
it's just as obvious as that. You just slowly push it up the middle.
Yeah,
of
it wasn't an easy task for this nurse, and it wasn't like it's straightforward. It was resistant as such.
Once it starts bleeding, though, should you not stop?
That was part of the problem why he was inserting it. They were trying to drain off the blood, I believe, from the bladder, perhaps something along those lines.
Oh God!
So yeah, it was a strange situation. I'm just merrily walking past down the ward corridor, and to be the next minute I'm sort of observing something go down someone's penis, and then blood coming out the end, and I'm chatting to the bloke who's having
Flashbacks, like being on station.
yeah.
Just walking down the corridor, I had a pair of balls in my hand.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It's just how it happens,
But again, surreal moment, Pete, because a few weeks before I'm just knocking around the fire station and doing usual duties, and then 3 weeks later I'm like in a ICU unit helping with this situation. But yeah, so anyway, I chatted to the old gent there, and
Great learning.
it was fantastic. Yeah, jokes aside,
Serious.
it was like,
Yeah.
I mean, where'd you get the
When you have
opportunity
the
to
opportunity
help
to-
with something like that?
Ever,
Yeah, you
ever.
don't, do you?
And when someone's having the worst day of their life,
You want to help them?
or like if that ever happens, or like you're with somebody, or you're with a patient somewhere on a job somewhere, and they're like, I've got a catheter, and it's it's coming out, or like this thing. You're not necessarily going to put it back in for them, but you at least are familiarised. It's okay. Yeah, I know, I get it. I get where it goes. I get what it does.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
It was gold. So yeah, I built obviously after.
Take us back to the butterfly.
Yeah, so it was the same gent. So then I went, and a few days later,
Did the butterfly cheer him up or not? Just
he didn't know it was there.
Did he not?
So it's outward facing, but it comes a bit sad actually. This one, because I sort of said, "Oh, how come the butterfly's in his window now?" And the nurse is like, "Oh, that's our palliative sign for end of life care." I'm like, "Wait, you mean like that goes in the window so people know that he's not going to survive this?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's what it is. So he's now on end of life care." I'm like, "Oh, right." And then a couple of days before that, I'm just chatting away to him, thinking, "Oh, hopefully he sorts this thing out." And it was non-COVID related, but I was shocked because it's right there in front of you, and it's sort of another perspective check.
What palliative end of life care is that in the do not resuscitate realm?
Along the similar lines, I'd imagine he was a DNR, but
they just decide
he's not going to survive.
He's not going to survive.
Yeah, and his life
based on what? He's just deteriorating.
Yeah, his condition, whatever illness
tried lots of stuff. He's not seemed to be responding.
Correct. It was not COVID in this scenario. It was something else, and I was just like, oh, that's really really gutting. And then I actually spoke to the consultant who delivered that news to him. I said, "Oh, I hope you don't mind. Like, how did that conversation go? Like that you've just had with that gentleman?" Because I've been sort of with him for the last couple of days doing a couple of bits and bobs, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like we don't have any training for that." As I asked, "Do you have training for that?" He said, "Well, we have a little bit of training, but most of it's on the job learning, and it's never an easy discussion to have." And the condition that the particular patient had was over a long course of time, and it sounded like perhaps he'd been missed by other professionals early along the journey, maybe.
Yeah.
Again, personal opinion, but
we'll never know.
It was tough. It was really tough. And then the family of that same guy turned up in the hospital.
You have kids?
Yeah.
Oh,
so his one of his children was there, and we were speaking to her. And just after she received that news, we happened to be close by, and the nurses were busy doing things as they always are in there. And there's no one there for her to speak to, because it was all on lockdown, and you can't visit your family, but they'd given her permission because of the nature of the situation, and she's there.
Because you could only send one person at a time or something.
You got it, yeah.
And this is a kid, a daughter, going to see.
And that's it, yeah. And
Did
we're
he die?
there, and yeah, he died. So you're like, and at the time he hadn't, but she's just been given that news, travelled a distance to come and see him, and I'm there. I'm like trying to sort of support as best I can with the mental health knowledge that I have, and just be a bit of a shoulder essentially.
Just try and be a bit of a mate, yeah. Try and bring that bit of
that was tough, Gary.
if that person's a service style, either emergency or armed forces or whatever they are. Okay, so how often would you see this butterfly knocking about? Because we hear there's a lot of people died.
Yeah, we saw it a few times. Other ones were unknown, and we sort of had conversations about, okay, well, this person is not going to make it, but we don't know when. But then you wouldn't know any different if you went up to them and chatted to them. So I'm chatting to this one patient and learning a bit about her and her family, and how one of her relations wanted to become a firefighter, and what's the best tips, and he's worried about his fitness, and so I'm telling her all about this and that and stuff like that. But that patient had come in with a massive bleed on the brain a few days before, and he almost like unresponsive. Was it a brain bleed or something to do with it was either brain or heart? And they're like, yeah, they're not going to survive tomorrow. And then a couple of days later, they've made a miraculous turn for the better, and you're like, oh wow. But then there was so much other stuff going on that they were like, yes,
move on.
They're not going to make it. Yeah, but you're chatting to them, and they're sat up in bed, just knowing that in a couple of weeks their condition's going to mean that they're not with us anymore.
There's a strange thing about empathy exhaustion, and also like how much cognitive load you can take, and how much. And we had gentleman from 87%. It might be the wrong name. That is 72. I don't remember. Apologise. And talking about mental health and stuff in the emergency services, and that sort of burnout, empathy, exhaustion, where working in an environment like that must be very difficult to be able to change gears from being very pragmatic, very practical, very logical. Where's finite resources? Where can we place these best? This person doesn't look like they're going to make it. Okay, we need to prioritize our care for this other place. And then being able to transition into home life and have your partner, whatever, your husband going, oh, yeah, I've had a crap day at the woodyard today. You know, so-and-so is being a dick and he moved my sandwiches. And you'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you know, it actually really annoyed me. And I sort of, you know, we nearly had a bit of a bust up in the car park. You're like, right, whatever, okay.
Yeah.
I've just freaking told someone they're going to die.
Yeah.
But that could be so hard, living in two different mindsets like that. Did you ever see any of that? Did anybody ever speak to you about it? Did you feel any of that trying to communicate with your partner? Because she's not in the emergency service.
She's not, no. But
so how much of this would you communicate to her? How much do you feel was appropriate? How much was even worth trying to explain? Because you also got to take your mind back through it every time. Sometimes it helps to discuss it, but sometimes it's
absolutely.
like, sometimes you're like, it's shit, but I spoke to somebody about it today. I don't really want to talk about it again.
Yeah. We'd have conversations about what had been going on in the day, and if it had been a tough one, I explained some of the dynamics of the patients that we were working with and how you'd build relationships. I told her about the gent with the catheter and the butterfly and things like that, and you know how it was a bit hard hitting, and she just gave me the space for it. And that is important as well when you're doing jobs or you go to incidents or you're in a role that is potentially continually exhausting mentally as well as physically. You have to have that decompression, whether that's through conversation, through going out for a walk, talking to your pals.
You actually made a bunch of notes with some of it, didn't you? You made some audio notes.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Are any of them particularly relevant to what we're discussing now?
Yeah, all of them. So
let's have a look.
We can have a little play with those. And
take time, have a fiddle.
What else? I was going to say the purpose of the audio notes was to debrief myself and to decompress at the end of the day. So it's kind of a journal essentially, but an easy one. So I'd go to my car at the end of the shift, eat some food, think about the day a little bit, and then record it as a voice note to sort of process everything. It was the first time I'd done something like that, and it worked really well because I was able to then revisit them later on and reflect what the time was like.
I think that's fantastic, mate. I've done it before. Usually if something's happened that I think might come to something else, like if it gets investigated, or if I've been to a big incident, or if there's been a conflict between people, I'll reference. I'll say, I sat in a meeting today. So and so were present, and so said this. Not sure I thought about it, but it is whatever. Friday, the 27th of September, and that's it. You know, or I say went to an incident like when you encourage people to take notes immediately after contemporaneous notes immediately after an incident or a debrief, something like that. Audio form's the best for me. Just bang, press record, and just go. Went to the job, saw this, and just try and as much detail as you can still fathom in your mind because you'll lose it so fast.
You do.
I went in, I stood at the corner of the building, the front window was already smashed in. I turned to my right, told BA1 to do this, to do that, set the blah, 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 blah. So useful to just mind dump that down.
It is, yeah. Out of your
it's
head.
the first time you've done it?
Yeah, it was, and it seems to have worked very well. More recently, I've done the ambulance secondment, and I started doing the same for that, but then the exhaustion levels were a whole nother level. So by the time the end of shift, I just wanted to get in the car and go home. So instead, I changed to writing notes throughout the shift when I could in very shorthand on my phone. So I've got a log, essentially, and I can now cast my mind back and be prompted by that and then remember each job individually.
100%.
So, yeah.
Let's have a listen.
So this capture is from day 2, and I'm talking here about everyone's actions outside of the hospital and how it is having a knock-on effect that might not be visible so much to the public eye.
So these were recordings from like sat in your car or something?
Correct, yeah. So this
just
is
on your phone?
Yeah, just a debrief, end of the day, record how the day went, etc.
So I will say as well, because I've heard a few of these before, for Chris's benefit, these were obviously recorded at a time when Chris was in the throes of it. His views about things may have changed since then, but obviously people will hear these in respect of all the news and everything that was going on at the time. So Chris reserves the right that this is not currently his opinion, but rock on.
Spot on. Yeah, so here I'm talking about the outside actions and the transmissions over that Christmas period, and how some patients had known where they'd got the virus from and later then passed away from it. Seasoned veterans on the team who have suffered from the mental stress of everything. You could see their faces, or one of them I remember looking at thinking that I saw fear in her. Should there be another wave of this pandemic? It just made me think about everyone's actions outside and how they just don't see the other side of these effects. Someone also shared with us that some of their patients could identify when they caught the virus, particularly over the Christmas period, who they saw when they would have caught it, and some of those people then went on to die. So they knew the chain, they knew what they were doing, and they still carried on, and there were multiple deaths as the result of that. And just hearing that firsthand from people who've spoken to people with the virus was incredibly eye-opening on the picture of the situation, which again is what I thought would happen. Everyone would see each other at Christmas time, they would spread the virus, and then a few weeks later that would rear its ugly head and people would start getting admitted into ICUs. Seems to be the trend that 5 to 8 days after being admitted into hospital with perhaps hypoxia or just difficulty breathing, that 7 to 8 days later you're then intubated and put onto the intensive care ward because of that situation. But yeah, it's been a good day off tomorrow, very looking forward to that. Feet ache, tired, ready for a little bit of a break before we hit it again on Thursday.
So Chris, you were just saying there, out listening. You know what I feel like when I'm listening to myself on the freaking podcast. But you will listen to yourself back and like, oh god, I'm so tired. I sound so slow. I sound like a freaking moron. I sound really slow. It's weird thinking back to that now. What's your reflections on it?
Well, firstly, if you want to send your listeners to sleep, that section will work.
No, but dude, you were like dog tired.
Yeah.
You were hanging out your ass on some of this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think jokes aside, I was just looking back on it now, thinking the fatigue after just being thrust into a new environment and learning new things, being in a new place, wearing different uniform, doing things I'm not used to. It was just physically and mentally exhausting, and I think that's what you can hear on my voice at the end of the day.
You mentioned an important thing in there about this whole track and trace. Now, from apps to GPSs to government wanting you to do this, that, and that, for all the best of intentions and all that, I'm sure. Was much said about that? Because you said that some people would be able to say that they think they knew where they got stuff, and
yeah. So that's a bit like what I spoke about on that voice note. Essentially, that was one of the COVID transmission stories where a couple, I think, if I remember correctly, had seen their family over the Christmas window, despite the advice at the time on the risks at the time.
Yeah.
And they were vulnerable, or perhaps later found out that they were vulnerable. One of them caught the virus and was speaking to the ICU teams about they knew exactly where it had come from because they hadn't seen anyone else. Like they'd only had contact with these people on that one day over Christmas, and then both of them, was it both or at least one of them passed away?
Wow.
And you're like, oh right. Again,
guilt trip, crazy.
Yeah. And then you wonder why the people that are working directly with the victims or patients in this role are very passionate about, particularly at the time, not spending time around people to protect those who are vulnerable. And
that can have a massive breakdown, because this was going on for it's still going on now, but this was going on for 2 years. For members of the emergency services, for members of the NHS, hospitals and stuff like that, to have distanced themselves from their loved ones, from their friends, from their other colleagues outside of the services, whatever. 2 years.
It's long.
You can get quite lonely doing that. You know, I know you see a team at work, but you just lose all the other relationships with everybody in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once they're gone, for most people, they're gone. It's like getting momentum on a ball, you know, to re-energize those relationships. Go, hey, come on, let's go out for lunch, and people are like, yes, maybe not. Maybe they've just like got new friends, and sometimes you just can't get it back.
Yeah, it's challenging.
What about the track and trace stuff inside you? So you spoke about how much you guys and girls are focused on protecting each other. Did anybody on the wards catch it?
There were stories of people on the wards catching it. I only heard of one directly, and this is where there was obviously an intensive care unit patient on the ward, non-COVID, and but very unwell, obviously, potential survivable outcome, however, and they were visited by a member of family who was potentially dishonest about their symptoms.
Wow.
And ended up transmitting the virus to that patient, who then passed away from COVID, and the virus was also passed to potentially that nurse working with that patient as well. Again, these are potential outcomes. You can't say that was it, but it was kind of leaning towards that. However, on the flip side, one of the team did say to us, with the amount of precautions, risk assessments, PPE and so on, you've actually got more chance of catching the virus when you go to the shops on the way home than you do here.
Oh, God, yeah.
Especially with the intubated patients, where they're not actually breathing out into the atmosphere. The breathing is all happening internally.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, well, you know what? And that was reassuring to know that.
So from those means, would you then have to, like you say, scan, check every day, test yourself every day? I probably already mentioned it before. And then were the times when you just weren't able to come in, or people were like, I'm feeling rough today, I don't know, so don't come in because you put everybody else at risk?
Yeah, if you're showing any symptoms, I believe at the time it was obviously not to come in. They needed to protect that resilience on a massive level in that unit.
Does that drop people straight into that 14-day thing, or is it a 10-day thing? Or
good question. I think it would have been longer in the earlier days.
Yeah.
You know, you're wearing masks everywhere.
21 days, I don't know.
There was restrictions on their what was their mess room. I think they only allowed 4 or 5 people in their mess room, and you got a unit of quite a big team there. And you know, if we're on a tea break, we did have the occasional tea break, of course, 11 o'clock. And they stick their head in, and there's 4 of them coming in, and they're like, and we're like, no, don't. Like, you come in, we'll get out, and then we'll go and stand in the corridor, go and find another side room on another ward somewhere. So the protocols were hot, and they were all over it. Like, it was diligent.
Talking about protocols, you mentioned something before we came on, and I wanted to say it just because it sounds funny. Hopefully it is funny. Code Browns?
Code Brown. Yes, yeah. So Code Brown is as what it says on the tin, really, Pete. So Code Brown meaning feces, excrement, whatever your flavour is. Yeah, whatever your favourite flavour of the day is. But yeah, so Code Brown's kind of little subtle, jovial way of saying we've got some stuff to clean up with a patient. So if you're thinking about these patients, particularly the really high dependency patients are catheterized, if that's the right word, and they've got a bag up the back passage as such, and then
tasty.
Yeah, it's tasty, and that's just fed down into a tube onto another bag. So the nurses are changing bags and changing catheter bags all the time, fairly routine. But then at one stage, obviously, you want to get that removed on their path to recovery, and then they're sitting on like an inco pad or an incontinence pad as such. It's basically a giant absorbent pad that helps a clean-up operation. Because of the diet they're on and the nutrition they're having to take in.
Liquids.
Yep, you got it. So Code Brown is like messy, and there's clean-up. But you got to think about it, okay, outside of that it's a bit of a rubbish situation as such, both for them and for the people that got to clean it up. It is business as usual. You got to get the job done, get stuck in.
Parents, resilience. You ever had a kid in the back of the car and you can smell it, and it's all up their back, and you're like, fuck is this coming from? What is this? What have you done? It's all like a jar of something smeared on yourself. How's it on your face? What are you doing? How's it on my face? How's it on my ear? Jesus, what is this?
Sounds like you're speaking from memories.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's like, oh, today's a daddy day. Great. Where are you going to take her? I'm not taking her anywhere. She, every time I put her in the car, she shits. It's like, I don't know what it is. Is there some shitty smells in the car?
Dirty protest.
Or, yeah, what? She's having a dirty protest in the back seat.
Yeah.
We didn't make it out the end of the driveway. Forget it, we're not going. I'll just put you on the floor and hope the dog licks you. I don't care. No, anyway.
But yeah, it was a whole nother level. I mean, we've been to sort of assist ambo or concern for welfare jobs before. I remember going
Bariatrics.
Yeah, you got it.
Stinks.
I went to one where there was a gent suffering from mental health, and he'd actually sort of taken his excrement and thrown it all around the walls of his house and smeared it on the walls. And went upstairs, and you get the watery eyes, and had to make a dash for fresh air on that one. But this, you don't have a choice for that in this situation. You've got to suck it up and crack on, basically.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
It's everywhere.
It does, and you're trying to make light of the situation. Like there was,
just keep talking to them.
That's it.
Yeah. But you got to clean it properly.
You do.
Same with like kids,
infection,
wiping back to front. No, wipe it all properly and get it out the bits and get it out the gaps. Because it will cause an infection. Mm-hmm. Especially like say if they've got blooming catheter here or they've got a freaking IV in their arm. Can't get nowhere near that. No, can't get around all the wounds. It can't get in anything. Orifices.
That's it. So yeah, we just do what we do best and create some light-hearted banter when it's appropriate.
Do the nurses see that and they're like, see if there's any of them firefighters out there because we've got freaking Go Brown in here. Just get one of them to do it.
You know it. I'm sure
you would do, wouldn't
conversations.
You? They're like, we need to go and do important things. You can do this. Anybody can do this.
Yeah,
so we clear up some poo.
They'd do the majority of the messy work. We'd be an extra pair of hands. We didn't have training.
There for comic relief.
Yeah,
bit of bounce.
That's it. And you kind of got to know the turn. So you do a log roll essentially on your patients. No pun intended there, because there were no logs involved. Liquid. And then you'd kind of, as you got used to it a few weeks in, you'd be like, all right, what have I got the stomach for today? You got to make a tactical choice of which side of the patient you're choosing. So if you're rolling towards, you're safe. If you're rolling away, you got the dirty side, mate.
Do you ever have that where you both go into the room and you both try and head for the same side of the bed?
Yeah, you're like,
oh, that's that game, is it? Right. So you're stood there.
Yeah.
So you want me to stand over there. Right. Okay. That's what's happening. Okay.
We had one where we'd done a whole maneuver, bed change. Again, she's incapacitated physically, but present, and she can starting to talk and and anyway, she'd had the accident or whatever, ready to clean up and that, all bed, all settled. And she looks and says, I'm really sorry, it's happened again. And she was devastated, and you're like, listen, don't worry, like,
about it.
We're here to help. We'll sort it out again. We'll just do the same as we did a minute ago. Is that all right? And they're chatting away, and she's like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, don't worry. And you just provide some reassurance, and this is with relationships that you've built over the few weeks, and they know your face, and give some smiles and have a bit of jovial.
Have a bit of chat.
That's it.
I'm the same whenever I go to bariatrics. Just try and make them laugh. Just try and have a chat with them about it. And be like, because they know what it's like.
Yeah, they do.
They know how bad it looks. Mm-hmm. There's no everyday business. Don't make a big deal about it. I wanted to ask you about, because you spoke about the fact that the first job, the first deployment was sort of 4 weeks, and then you went on and did another stint, or did you do another stint on the ambulances or on the paramedics? Sorry.
So we did. We had the ICU deployment, 4 weeks, then extended to 6. So that's about a year ago now. And now more recently, I've just done 2-month secondment deployment, however you want to phrase it.
Glutton for punishment. You want to go back for more?
Yeah.
Why did you want to go back?
What, into the ambo?
Yeah.
Again, it was a call for help, and I'm here, so let's get going.
Is anybody hearing about what you're doing and trying to get in the team, or was it the same old faces, or?
What, on the ambulances,
you
mean? Totally different. Like, there was some crossover skill from ICU, and it was just another opportunity for growth, another opportunity to help, and another one to, like, push the comfort zone, There's similar, very, very similar reasons for signing up to the ICU. okay, well, AMBO's on their knees, they're struggling for staff. Our service have put a role together where we can supplement and help them.
So what did you do when you say help them? What was your role?
Our role for AMBO, I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on that, was ambulance driving.
Nice.
Yeah. So it needed to be qualified driver and EFAD, all that jazz. Conversion course with them, and then 2 months with them.
Ambulance is faster?
Yeah.
Significantly.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the Mercs are about maybe 5.5, 6 ton. And
well, the ones we had were 6. We pulled an ambulance, didn't we? Me and a friend of mine pulled an ambulance for whatever it was, a couple of miles. 6 tonners, half the average. They were way heavier than I thought they were.
The new Fiats are lighter.
Yeah. I've seen some of the Ford ones. They're literally called. I know Venari do a few of them called lightweight ambulances, shorter, smaller things. So you were driving for them. Any big changes with the driving? I know, like you said, it's a whole conversation itself, but
yeah, we did a conversion course with them. Very similar principles. A few different, like what's that word? Policy. There's a few different policies on speed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the blue light handbook or the police blue light driving manual, wherever it's taken from, is essentially almost the same. The police roadcraft, is it?
Because they do a lot of, because obviously within a fire appliance, you only blue lighting it on the way there. With an ambulance, you do a lot of pickup and then almost a slightly more, not that it's not controlled, but a slightly more controlled blue light run to the hospital.
Yes, it's a whole different game. Transporting the patient or conveyance.
What's some of the biggest runs you did? Because some of them go miles. A long ass way.
We were running like, they wouldn't blink an eye at a 20-30 minute blue light run.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So you're like, what?
Depends what hospital they need to go to, isn't it?
Yeah, where the patient is, what resilience.
So was it working with a single paramedic, or would you
mostly? Mostly me and one paramedic.
Who's nicer, the ICUs or the paramedics?
Different.
Political answer. There's some stunning paramedics out there.
Yeah.
Girls aren't bad either.
Honestly, I knew you were going there. Yeah.
So, when you were in the actual ICU stuff, you spoke earlier about having to, most of the roles were relatively mundane, but you got a chance to look in on a few things. And will any of these COVID stuff go through any surgeries or anything like that? Because a lot of the stuff, you say build up of stuff on the lungs and then the minor stuff like inserting the catheter the nasty way. Did you get to observe anything deeper, or was it like you had to just do the rabbit run around jobs all the time?
No, yeah, like when appropriate, we got to observe some stuff, and I'm kind of a bit of a geek when it comes to taking on information. I'm like, what does that do? And why are you doing that? Or can you tell me about this ECG thing? Blah blah blah. But yeah, so I know some of my colleagues in the other hospitals got to observe some really major surgeries in between what they were doing. Like I think one of them got to view something in theatre, which would have been quite an experience.
Wow.
We did sow the seed for that if there was an opportunity, please could we
stand in the back of the room, not be in the way.
Yeah. We didn't get to go in theatre, but we watched some local surgeries like a peripherally inserted catheter, which is where they go into either the vein or the artery, if I remember correctly. And
I bet it's the vein.
Probably, yeah.
Well, vein are surface level, aren't they? Arteries are lower down.
Yes,
arteries go away.
Yeah.
Veins go towards.
Yeah, so veins return.
Veins return. Veins return.
Arteries go away.
You have arterial bleeds, which is under pressure.
Correct, yeah.
Coming away from them.
So they were inserting...
They sound like firefighters, CC.
That's it, yeah.
We're not sure.
One, first aid at work.
Your peripheral veins are on your surface, aren't they? The colder ones, they go back towards it. That's why it causes down, and then all your arterial lower blades ones, right?
So I think if I remember correctly, they were inserting this catheter to feed the patient nutrition directly into the bloodstream.
Okay.
So again, you're looking at the deterioration of the patient, and their stomach is now starting to say, "Sorry, no, we've got other stuff to do here. We're not digesting anymore."
Well, it takes a lot of blood flow to digest food, doesn't it?
About 10% you lose to the stomach on a meal eat, I think.
That's why, when you get shocked, people say I'm shit scared. That's where the term comes from. Because if you spook an animal, it'll either vomit, or it'll poo, because it needs all of its blood to go to all of its peripherals. It needs to heighten its sensitivity. It dumps a load of adrenaline in there. So it's like, whatever's going on in digestion, just hit the emergency stop.
Yeah.
So it either vomits it up or poos it out.
Yeah.
So it can run, fight, freeze, whatever it's going to do.
Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, this chap had the stomach had stopped doing its thing, and they were going for IV nutrition. And another one we got to watch was a lung endoscopy. So you're taking
endoscopy.
Yeah. So endoscopy is, I believe, sort of any procedure that goes into the body through
the camera through them.
You got it, through external orifice.
Yeah, because you can have you can have various endoscopies for the heart, stick them up your bum.
So this one went straight down the tube into the lungs, and they're having a look with a camera on the end. Quite an art to that for this. The operator on the machine,
it's like a super snake eye thing.
You got it. Yeah. So think USAR.
Camera,
or
10x.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really small.
Lube it up to hell and feed it straight. But they're conscious when they do this.
I think
you can do it when you're awake.
Was on this one. Yeah. I'm trying to think who it was, but
I know they do the heart stint in through the vein when you're awake. Yeah, they get insertion mid thigh or whatever it is, and they go up, and because they can either go through there or they can go in a hole underneath your arm. Sometimes a quicker way to go in as well. But yeah, they stay awake. And I remember my dad had open heart surgery, and he says about scratching. You can feel it scratching inside you, and I'm like, wow, surreal. So you've got to observe that.
Yeah, we got to see it all on the screen right next to us. And again, like a few weeks before, you're knocking around the fire station doing your normal duties, and then a couple of weeks later, you're like next to someone's hospital bed watching the inside of their lungs on a screen. You're like, oh, right, wow.
That's surreal.
This is pretty cool. And anyway, they're having a little look inside to see what the damage was doing with the COVID front, if there's any mucus build up down there. It looked all good. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, various other surgeries going on throughout the day. We're taking people down to the MRI scanner, X-ray. We're running blood.
What's MRI stand for?
Something to do with magnetic
resonance imagery, I think it is, something like that.
There you go.
I love all those sorts of stuff. Because you get baffled by it all the time. I think my brother-in-law constantly brings out mnemonics and acronyms almost at the dinner table. I'm like, dude, slow down,
please.
Reverse.
Yeah.
Talk to me like a firefighter, please. So what was it like when you actually came to leave this whole thing, and like it all came to an end? I mean, do you have anything ongoing? Are they going to get called back, or what was it like leaving the team?
Yeah, it was tough, Pete, to say the least. Like we'd built strong relationships in that team. They'd really looked out for us, taken us in. Like I said earlier, this was their world now. We were in their house, and they'd embraced us coming into that unit. We later found out that particular unit was very close-knit and tight. So it was almost a bit of a compliment to us that we managed to sort of merge into that team really nicely. And, we left the door open. They sort of said, if you ever want to come back and do some observing and things like that, then we can make that happen. And you're like, oh, wow, we've done our job. We've done really well. They're pleased. At week 3, the matron gave us some really positive feedback. So halfway through, we sort of knew we were doing the right thing and making some tracks into this team. But yeah, I remember the last day was very hard hitting. Us lot had got rallied together and sort of put a few quid together and made a nice card. Got a Blaze Firefighter charity bear for their mess room. And I don't know, some flowers and chocolates and things like that.
Yeah.
Little did we know they'd gone and done the same for us, and had all these cards made up, like individually signed for each individual of us in our team of 3, and bought a bottle of wine and like a personalised inscribed glass. It was like ICU Firefighters heroes or health heroes or something along those lines. I obviously still got it today, and we got
eBay.
Little yeah, waiting to cash that one. But
that is surreal, isn't it?
Rainbow
when you have stuff like
badges
that. That is just like, and it's happening. No COVID pun intended. It's happening in isolation. You know what I mean? It's happening like in a corner of the world. Nobody knows anything about what's other than like our conversation now, because this stuff's happening now. It's happening all over the world.
It is.
People are doing this stuff, toiling away in the darkness just to serve the greater light. Do you know what I mean? They're doing these things and no one knows. We're going about our own life. And when I hear about this stuff, and we spoke earlier about guilt, I just feel a constant sense of, God, man, get over yourself. Do you know what I mean? You're talking about this problem that you've got, or today's not this or that, or like you've got a niggle, or there's so many bigger things at play. Stuff like that. Stuff like people going so outside their comfort zone.
Yeah.
To go above and beyond for, mate, that it's like the epitomization of the podcast itself. It's like people like you and the nurses and the doctors and the paramedics and the firefighters coming together. It's like a call to arms, and I love it. I just feel humbled to be sat here listening to you, and I wish we could get time to talk to maybe some of the other people that were there, and I'm yet to have a nurse or a doctor or something that's worked through that time. They're on the hit list, because I want to give them the opportunity to really share it outside of their organisation, share truly what it was like, and I just think it's incredible. So going back to your station, when they've all just been doing the day to day. I mean, they've been getting after it. They've been doing the job, but surreal, very surreal.
But before I go there, I may just rewind one.
Please,
was that none of us did it for recognition.
No,
and you're there because of the need and the drive and this thing
wasn't
inside
part of a promotion
you.
pathway.
No, God no, it's not got zero to do with it.
Yeah,
it was okay. I'm sitting here. I'm getting frustrated. I want to help, and we did it. I chose not to put anything on my social at the time about it. It wasn't about that. I may do in the future, but
you should do.
It was about at the time. And on our last shift, they actually clapped us off the ward down the corridor at shift change, and I'm there like trying to hold back the tears, and so are my two pals. And we're like, blimey, this is like moving. Like even now, I'm reliving the moment, and it was like, that's really humbling. And you don't do it for a certificate or a piece of paper, but having that little bit of recognition within that team
from people you respect as well.
Exactly that. I mean, we all got a letter through the post from the Queen's representative for the county, all fancified paper and stuff. I'm like, gee, that's something to be proud of. That's going on the wall. And then one of the other firefighters who also did this comment in another hospital, she's an artist, so she created a lovely piece of artwork, which was 3 firefighters all lined up back to back with NHS written on across the 3 of their backs. And you're like,
that's great.
Yeah, that's really, really hard.
Send that over. We'll share it. We'll use it as a piece of this. Give that person some recognition, because I love that sort of stuff.
We'll do that. But yeah, we stood at the entrance to the ward at the end, got a photo and that, and yeah, we all were pretty teary at that point, and we were like, okay, we've done our stint and the job is done. It's calmed down. They've closed down the extension ward to ICU. It's now reopening for what it's supposed to be doing, and the work is done. And you kind of got to close that chapter and move on from it. But you're still your mind is still in the zone. You're still in the moment, and it was a bit weird to be like, oh, we're done now. See ya. On to the next thing. And yeah, so going back to the station, like you just asked, a bit surreal, because the guys and girls have been ticking away, getting stuff done, doing the work. They're asking you about the deployment and stuff like that, and before you know it, you're just back in the swing of station life. And
right, Chris, you're driving today.
Yeah.
Check the pump.
Yeah, back to the routine. And
was there ever part of you thinking like, I wonder what so and so's doing now? I wonder what they're doing on the ward
all the time.
I wonder how they are. I wonder what happened to that patient.
I'll tell you a good one on that, actually. You've just prompted me. So nearly a year later, Safe and Well's landed on my desks, and we're doing the phone calls like you do, phoning up the people in the community saying, can we book you in for your Safe and Well? And I recognise the name on the paperwork, and I'm like, that name is from one of our patients who we looked after for the whole of the deployment, and that's landed on my desk for me to phone. I'm like, that's not a coincidence. So I phone her. I'm like, oh, is that so-and-so? You in ICU at such and such during these dates by any chance? Yeah, that's me. I said, oh, it's me, Chris. No way. And we had a chat, and I'm like, what the hell? Like we've spent 6 weeks looking after you. I fed her lunch by hand, and not literally hand, but
using a utensil.
Yeah, knife and fork. And then a year later, I'm chatting to her on the phone about our smoke detectors and can we come and visit her and stuff, and asking her how's your recovery going? Have you got oxygen in the house? Are you breathing on your own? And it was just so good.
How's so and so? How's your partner? How's your whatever kids, friends? We spoke
General
about this.
Chat.
We shared about that.
Yeah, and a year prior, they're laying on a bed with your briefings in the morning saying, "Yeah, I don't know if they're going to live or not," and then you get to have a chat with them. You're like, wow, that's powerful, really powerful.
But that gives some cool closure.
It was, it was good. But there's still the untied knots of like, oh, I wonder what's happening to so and so. We could find out if we wanted to. We've heard a few little whispers back of people, getting discharged and trying to return to normal life.
Life moves on as well, and so does yours. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Jesus, we've gone in so many directions today. I wanted to have a think about like some takeaways, some things for listeners of people that have gone through like perseverance. I mean, we even spoke about your recruitment, and I like to try and get a few sort of takeaways for people about the things today and maybe things that they can think about. So I suppose like from the beginning of our chat, when we're talking about your recruitment, you persevered for a long time. You had a lot of setbacks. What advice would you give to anybody that was maybe some point through that journey and maybe they've just had their latest kick in the ass and they're pushed away? And what advice would you give to somebody like that?
Yeah, so my advice on your perseverance, particularly if you're trying to get into an organisation, be that public sector, private sector, services, whichever, and it's one of those challenging recruitments where it is competitive. There are not very many roles against the amount of applicants. You've got to keep going. If there's no definitive reason that you can't join the organisation that you want to, then you just have to keep at it. Build some support mechanisms that help you get there. Ask for advice, things like that. Find people that can help you and learn from each of the application processes. Like seek the feedback, particularly if their later stages have been unsuccessful, because you're getting close there. I know from personal experience it's a kick in the face when you get knocked back, particularly time and time again, and it does wear thin and it is draining. But once you're over it and you're on to the next one with more information, knowledge applied on board, you're getting closer to the golden ticket of the particular role that you might want. You really have to go out and find out from the guys and the girls in the role what they get up to, any tips they might have, research the sector, absorb good content, look for any information you can get hold of, good podcasts, attend events and network, get a mentor or two, really start thinking about pushing your own personal comfort zone and then reap the rewards of getting uncomfortable learning and developing things. Learn from each process and make sure you're doing all that you can do to become the strongest applicant for the next one.
Dude, love that. It made me think though, because a lot of people feel like they are kind of against the odds, especially with the numbers of people that are applying for things these days. And even I suppose if we zoom out just for like the emergency service as a whole, listening to the people in the NHS and firefighters, with the call rates and the number of recruits that we need to come in, and again with the NHS, and certainly the stuff that you went through COVID, if you feel like you're against the odds and you feel like it's not likely that you're going to come out on top, how do you like set your mindset up for a win if you feel like you're against the odds on a day-to-day basis?
That's a great question, Pete. Key is having that growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. I think we've all been subject to going through fixed mindset in either majority or some areas of life, and that's okay, but just recognize it and think about how you can improve on that and become more of a growth mindset person. If you're always being a victim, you're always going to absorb yourself in that energy. Yes, if you get knocked back and things don't work out for you, it's going to be a bummer and it's going to be tough to get over, but get over it and don't be a woe is me victim. It's a craft that I've learned over many years, and in my personal view, it's a continually evolving one. As you've heard earlier, I've learned the hard way from being knocked back several times from applications, but also been incredibly unbalanced in life. I've reached burnout and massively dark places of mental health and well-being. These days, the information is just like so easily available now. You can educate yourself and find ways that work for you to set yourself up for the win. The odds can stack against us in so many different ways, as we've touched on today. budget cuts. You talked about the pandemic, Pete, personal and professional challenges, just to touch on a few there. I guess in summary, I would set myself up for the win these days by actually not biting off more than I can chew. It's good to be in a challenged environment and not just sitting on your laurels and being comfortable, but actually think about the impacts of the decisions that you make in life. So when you say yes or no to something, you can make a conscious effort to think about the domino effect of what that decision might be, of that yes or no. What is it likely to lead to? And is that what you want? Is it aligned with what you're trying to achieve in your own life or career?
There's so many decisions where, like you say, you have to ask yourself, is the decision I'm about to make going to move me closer to or further away the thing I'm going? There's a great book, and a speaker from an Olympic rowing team talks about, does it make the boat go faster? Asking yourself that question, is what I'm about to do going to make the boat go faster? Is the behavior, the person I'm speaking with, the place I'm about to go, the decision I'm about to make, is it going to take me closer to or further away? And it can be a brutal process, but you've got to have that systematic planning somewhere. And you haven't got to write it up on a board. It's not got to, plans don't inspire people as such, but they work to an extent. You've got to have, I'll talk about strategies and tactics. Strategies is like a 6-lane highway. The tactics is the lane you're in.
Nice.
You can switch lanes and you can move around a lot, but the strategy is I'm heading north. There's lots of ways to head north: train, bus, fly, swim, run, zigzag, forwards, upwards, but it's always heading north, and asking yourself, is the tactic I'm currently applying taking me north in some fashion or another? And just have that sort of personal compass for something like that. We spoke before about sort of culture, and it's a big part of the podcast, and we spoke sort of on the podcast and off in our own personal discussions outside of today about, you described it as like the oomph. Do you know what I mean? People having that sort of get up and go, and how your own subconscious conditioning from the military side of things, from how you've chosen to live your life, you may have a little bit more oomph, no better or worse than anybody else. But if people are struggling to have that bit of oomph, could you sort of expand on what that is, and how we can sort of try and live it, I suppose, on a more day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. The oomph comes from a place of comfortability, I think, in my mind. We've chatted about it this morning, haven't we? The drive, and perhaps spinning too many plates in life or profession, biting off more than you can chew, means rather than performing well in perhaps one or a few key areas, you spread yourself too thinly across the ground in many. So make sure perhaps you're not doing that until you know your own capacity buckets thoroughly and what you're actually capable of achieving. But in terms of oomph in the current culture, we're now in an era of shaping the culture of what's to come, aren't we?
100%.
And there is,
we are the culture. We can't talk about it as though it's external from us. Our actions and our day-to-day decisions shape the culture. We are the culture. Not we as in you and I sat here, but the people in the emergency services today. It's us.
That's
it.
Not
what's come before us. What's what we're doing now, the decisions we're making, the impact we're having on other people around us is the culture.
That's it. And there's people in our services, whether it's fire, any emergency services, military, whatever, private organisations, that have an impact. Every individual can have an impact. It doesn't matter what rank you're sat at, what organisations you're at. Your personal responsibility and your sense of pride and role and motivation and oomph is what's going to propel you forward personally. It's going to complement your team and your colleagues, and it's going to have an impact on the greater organisations that be for the future of our sectors.
So when we talk about the future of that sector, we spoke a lot about change today. You've gone outside your comfort zone. You have been at the forefront of some of the changes that have been happening in the emergency services. These may become a more rigid or more long-term part of the emergency services now in terms of interagency working, supporting each other. You're clearly the sort of person that embraces change, but for a lot of people, it's difficult to cultivate or stimulate that desire, willingness, or even just open-mindedness to change. So is there any way to speak to that in terms of people that perhaps are a little bit more reluctant to engage in change?
Yeah, it goes back to mindset again, I think if you have the ability to question openly your own mindset on why you think like something or how you think, or, okay, this is a change that's been presented to me and I think this about it as my reactive first thought, and then question why, and then question why again, and then really dive into, okay, well, where does my belief system actually come from? Is that mine, or is that something that's been passed on to me through perhaps family growing up, or negative mindsets that I've unintentionally surrounded myself by?
There's no such thing as an original opinion or an original decisions or something like that. You are a cocktail of the people around you, your parents, your colleagues. You know, you are being affected by some things. That's why I always say be so conscious about the people you're placing yourself around, that value of association. You could say, oh yeah, no, Chris's negativity doesn't really get to me. It does. It is going in. That's how marketing works. That's how subliminal marketing works. It's bleeding into your ear all of the time. It's permeating your mind. It is happening. But yeah, getting people to want to change or be open to it is difficult.
It is hard. And a phrase that I've often referenced is that if we aren't changing, we're going backwards. Yes, there are some techniques, methods, ways that will always be bread and butter, and don't try and reinvent the wheel as such, but in an ongoing capacity, if you're not staying with the times and you're flexibly changing and you're being fluid, you are going backwards. Another phrase I pinched, I think, from Stephen Covey: if you don't like something, then change it. If you can't change it, reflect and see if you can change the way you think about it. A bit like what I said earlier. Opportunities are all around us. How you find out about them and maximise them to your advantage is up to you.
Setbacks always happen with this sort of stuff as well, though, and it's hard for people to... and also, when we talk about changing the people that are around or changing the mindsets, it's a difficult thing. The old sayings of, if you can't change the people you're around, change the people you're around. And if you want to go somewhere, or you want to do something, or you think this is the right decision to make and people aren't along with the ride for you, you are going to have to change the people you're around. They are not going where you... And even if they were going where you were going at the beginning, they may not be going there now.
Got it.
Again, back to that north analogy. If you and I said, we're heading north, and we both start off and we're going and we're going and we're going, and we get to Scotland and you stop. Well, I meant like North Pole. You meant Scotland. And we were both heading in the same direction to start with, but you will get to a point where, like a journey, people will get on and off your train. They may not want to go where you want to go, and their vision of where the finish line is different to yours. So at that point, like my daughters, I've said this before on the podcast, she's in year 6 now. She's going to go up to high school soon. She freaking loves year 6. Year 6 teacher, best teacher in the world. You know what? So was a year 5 teacher. But after year 5, she's at a different place in her life. Yeah. So she needs to go to year 6 now because she needs to continue to grow. She can't just go, I love year 5, Dad, I'm going to stay here forever.
Exactly.
Best year ever. But life is changing. Something about when we get to an adult, we like, I'm here now, I'm in this thing, I'm in this job. No more growth for me. There's like they park on the side of the road and that's it.
And they stay.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, are you okay? You broken down? They're like, no. This is where I am. But this is not a road you stop on. This is life.
Yeah.
Everyone else is still moving. We're all moving past you. You think you're still, you're going backwards. Life is evolving. Life is changing. Everything is change. All progress is a result of some change, and we've got to keep progressing. There's challenges out there we need to fix. It's not going to be done by ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, from this sort of whole perspective, in what ways any of this has changed your perspective, if it has changed your perspective at all, how you look at things differently now.
Yeah, definitely. And additionally, off the back of the recent ambulance secondment as well, but this sort of sowed the seed for it. Firstly, going into that hospital environment, somewhere I've never been before, I never doubted the level of training of the NHS, of course, but it was a direct insight into just their almost elite knowledge and skill of what they're doing and how they're operating there was just absolutely fantastic, and the high level of care given to patients. It was an absolute blessing to be able to firstly see that firsthand, and again know that care is there if I or any of my loved ones or families or friends needed it. That would be the first thing. The shifts and workload versus...
Everybody's going to need it at some point.
Yeah.
That's the thing. None of us are getting out of this alive.
No. Wait, what?
Not the podcast. I mean, like life.
Shifts and workload uncomparable to my experience in the fire service.
Yeah.
It's just you can't put those two things in the same box at all. The structure of the day, the consistent work, there's always something going on. There isn't the flexibility in the planning of our day like we might have outside of the calls in our line of work. That was very humbling and made me think, actually, like, we're in a great position here. Yes, we get to do training and we get to do our reactive work and things like that, but that's because of our role. Like, they don't get
every day in the fire service is a winner.
It is.
Honestly, and I just it boils my piss when I hear people moan about some of the stuff they think they have to do in the service. I just like, oh God, I just want to grab them. I hate it. Honestly, it's just so their window of perspective has shrunken so far. They've forgotten what they're doing.
Yeah,
they've forgotten how lucky they are.
Yeah.
It's an elitist mindset sometimes. We're so lucky, and we've got capacity to help people. We should be.
I completely agree. There's opportunity to do more, and like we said earlier, let's look at that and see how it can go down the right routes and the right channels, and perhaps to those who are embracing of it and want to get involved in it. But you're totally right. It doesn't compare, and we do have a good role and a good opportunity there. Looking at the patients and their conditions did make me review my own longevity and health and well-being, both physical and mental. Made me start to think about further investing in my own health, whether that's in monetary or time forms. You know, you kind of create a resilience to protect yourself against the unforeseeable. Like, if you're healthy, both mentally and physically, and I'm always constantly working on both of those elements, then you've already got your own insurance against things like this and your own resilience to mean that you might not end up in a bad way if something happens, if you in an accident or you go through a mentally challenging time.
Sometimes where people say to me, like, they're like, why are you training every day? And I'm like, because you're not. And you might need me one day.
Yeah.
But not me as Pete Wakefield. You know, you're going to need somebody. Someone is going to be able to, someone needs to be up there. Someone needs to be standing on the line. Someone needs to be at the end of the phone. Someone needs to be on the back of the fire engine. Someone needs to be on the back of, and they don't have the luxury of pissing their health and well-being up the wall, or they shouldn't have. And that's why these are professional careers for me. You have an obligation. Yeah. What sort of firefighter, what sort of paramedic, you know, be the police officer you want to come to your house when stuff went sideways. That is the person you need, and that is where you need to look at this role holistically and say that it's not just a 9 to 5, it's not just a tick box, it's not just a personal qualities and attributes, it's not just a required professional competencies and ex-GCSEs. It's so much bigger than that.
It is.
And you need to hold yourself, that personal accountability, you need to hold yourself to a standard that is unrealistic to the vast majority of the public, in my personal opinion. And I'm sure recruitment agencies will be screaming at the podcast saying, no, everybody's welcome, no matter, everybody is welcome if they want to hit the standard.
Yeah.
Don't come in, dilute the pool. Come in and raise us up. Come in and challenge me. Come and call me out on my BS. Anybody, you know, go and ask them to be a better version of themselves.
Agree.
And just say, was I the best version of myself today? If not, that's okay. But then try and be 1% better tomorrow.
Yeah, completely agree.
That's all I ask.
Yeah.
If we wanted to leave anybody with a sort of a final message, because I'll be brutally honest, you know, with the podcast, we do want to try and inspire action in people, want them to be the best version of themselves. So from your experiences and what inspired you to get into the job, what do we need to have in mind when we're trying to make the next sort of decade of the fire service and the next decade of the emergency services a great place for people to be?
Great question. So I think if you're that person who is potentially considering a career in the emergency services or some sort of service sector and you're not quite sure about it, go and find out about it. Push your comfort zone like we talked about earlier. Be the best version of yourself for the potential future role that you might then encompass by going into that zone. If you're someone who's already in the service and you're passionate about it and you love the job, that's okay, and live with those values and live by those values. Push yourself and push your career. It might not necessarily mean down the promotion route, but there's so much opportunity in what we do. But you have to put yourself out there. You have to reach uncomfortable places for growth.
And the more you lean into it, the more you realise as well. So, from your USAR stuff to the paramedic stuff to the ISAR stuff that I do to the fire investigation to the dog rolls to the stuff you can do with the police. It's the old phrase, the more you put in, the more you get out. The
What do you say? Kicking doors and taking names?
Yeah, you got to kick down doors for people to walk through.
Yeah,
you've got to go first.
That
You know what I mean?
well,
Shy kids don't get sweets as well. So go and ask. Go and ask your service. Go and ask, what other opportunities are there for me?
Yeah.
What can I do to add more value to this service, to the paramedics, to the ambulance service, to the police service, to the care sector? There are lots of challenges that we need to find solutions to. And the thinking that's brought us this far is not going to take us past them. So we need people with neurodiversity. We need people looking, sounding, speaking, thinking differently to take us past where we are right now. What you have done 10 years ago would not have happened. It wouldn't have allowed it to happen.
No.
But people asking, people throwing their name in the hat, people being cheeky enough to say, let's just go and do a recce. Let's just go and find out about it. Let me just see what it is. And
take that first step.
Take that first step. And before you know it, a bunch of people will step in behind you. It's like a rugby game. You jump down the rug, everyone comes in behind. Now let's push. Let's get it over the line.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's what you've done. Chris, I've loved our conversation today, mate.
Me too, man.
It's been freaking outstanding. We've gone in a bajillion different directions, and I'm hoping we've fleshed out all of the contents of what you guys and girls have been part of. I hope this acts as like a template for other services to hopefully think about utilizing. Just expand people's mindsets as to what the opportunities are in the services out there, and hopefully take us towards a position where we are working more with different agencies and we are acknowledging and supporting more people that are out there on the front line. Thank you, my man. Love that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
The Firefighters podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.